democracy sucks. Our founding fathers and our Constitution are specifically designed to be undemocratic. That's why we have a Senate. That's why we have a constitutional republic. We have a constitution. We don't have a democracy. So this idea that following the Constitution is undemocratic, yeah, it is, because democracy sucks.
This happens to leftists too.
Cam,
I agree with you because platforms like sorry.
You were the biggest one on TikTok.
Yeah, for a long while.
And now you're on my show. The mighty have fallen.
Yeah, no, like yeah.
Excuse me, I'm on your show too. This is a
Exactly.
show,
Yeah,
Dylan.
exactly.
You little
Yeah.
fucking piece of motherfucker. Take that back.
Yeah, Destiny.
Infrastructure is a communist buzzword, and Trump had the economy going until the communist shutdowns by the local government.
Just shut up, Dylan. I guess you said that infrastructure is a communist buzzword. So I guess this is kind of a two-parter. Do you think that social spending of any kind is communist? And can you define communism?
Communism is lies to control the people through hatred and spoiling them.
True.
And social spending
is that what Karl
generally.
Marx wrote?
Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt.
Okay.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. I hope you're having a wonderful afternoon, and I would like to thank you all for choosing to spend your Friday with Hippy, Dippy Incorporated. The movers and shakers, all thank you. Now, I want to thank you all for coming to this edition specifically because we've been doing this show for almost 2 years now, and this is actually the 50th episode of the Hippy Dippy Roundtable, and the first of the new year after taking a hiatus, and we're going to be implementing a lot of new stuff into the new year to try to make the show more energizing and more interactive, and I just want to thank you all for starting the new year with a bang. I also want to say that today, a personal interview of mine on Jesse Lee Peterson's show, The Fallen State, was released, and I would tell everybody they should go check it out. It was a very interesting, and I would even say amazing interview, to say the least. So now, before we get into the rules, I'm going to have everybody give a short introduction. Try to keep it timely, of course. We're going to start in the top left-hand corner with the conservative TikTok star, Cam Higby.
Hi, I'm Cam. I post on TikTok. I, of course, talk about political issues, just like I'm sure everybody else in here does. I'm a conservative, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Wonderful. Next is going to be, sadly, the League streamer, Stephen Bunnell.
Hey guys, what's up? You probably know me better online as Yorha Space Destiny. I'm an 80 carry main bot lane. I'll be going for Grand Masters this season. Okay, so make sure you watch my streams. I will definitely be getting to Grand Masters, and yeah, it's going to be a great ride there.
It sure will. Now, we're going to throw it over to Hake.
Hey guys, I'm James Hake. I host the HakeReport Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 Pacific time. I'm an expert and I read Hake News over on the Jesse Lee Peterson show, which is a morning show. I'm on his network. And I produce Church with Jesse Lee Peterson at his nonprofit organization, Bond. And I'm happy to be on Hippy Dippy once again.
Happy to have you back, Hake. And hopefully I can come on your program next week.
Yes, that would be fun.
Throwing it now over to ImReallyImportant.
Awesome, Dylan. Thanks for having me. I go by I'm Really Important. I follow electoral politics. We keep a close eye on the House and the Senate. And I'm excited to be here. Should be a lot of fun.
Wonderful. And thank you for making the last-minute replacement. Our surprise guest sadly couldn't make it due to personal troubles. And so IRI, of course, is the best surprise we could have wished for.
Wait, who was the surprise guest?
I can't tell you. It's a surprise. It'll have to be a
Well,
surprise
but they couldn't
for another
make
day.
it, so...
Well, now it'll be a surprise for another day.
I know who they were, and they lied about the personal issues. I just didn't want to be on your shit-ass fucking show.
Yeah, I'm sure, Destiny. But you came here because you're a shit-ass fucking streamer. Now I'm going to throw over to LCTRfan.
Hey, what's up? I'm LCTRfan. I'm a conservative. I've been streaming politics on Twitch since 2015. I'm an attorney in the day. I stream at night every evening, except Thursday nights. Thursday night's family night. And then I do gaming on the weekends. So stoked for 2022. Can't wait for the Republicans to take back Congress and put an end to the Biden administration. Let's go. Thanks for having me, Dylan.
Happy to have you here, LCTRfan. Now I'm going to throw it over to Merrick.
Hey, I'm Merrick Deville. I am a leftist, allegedly a YouTuber and a streamer. That's very rare nowadays. I cover like sex work, feminism, drug issues, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Happy to have you here, Merrick. Now we're going to throw it over to a Hippy Dippy recruitment show alum of our developmental brand, the Paradigm Shift. How you going? How's it doing, man? You are muted.
I am muted. I did the streamer thing. Yay, my first time, and I did the streamer thing. I am the Paradigm Shift. I am a leftist. I just believe that values belong to the people, and I try to discuss that as much as I can on my show every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, or whenever my depression does not kick in. And I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. Now we're going to throw it over to TJump.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on. I'm TJump. I do debates with professors and philosophers on reasons to believe in a God, pretty much, and occasionally talk to political topics. Thanks for having me on.
Happy to have you on, and I'm finally happy I'm getting your name correct. Okay, so let's go into some of the rules of the program. The first rule, of course, is that when I'm talking, no one else is talking. I am not talking to make political points. I will merely be talking in order to moderate. And so I would ask you, if you cannot hear me right now, to turn up my volume up in Discord, and try to recognize my voice among everyone else, because I will mute you if you continue to talk while I am talking, while I attempt to moderate. The next rule is we will not be breaking any Twitch terms of service. Many of us are streaming on the Twitch platform, and they have some stricter terms of service, for instance, than YouTube does. And I would ask you to do your best to follow those terms of service. I would also ask you not to make attacks on people's inalienable characteristics. That includes things like gender and race. We're not going to be doing those types of attacks. You can go ham on their ideas, okay? You can insult people's intelligence. But I would also say that, I will say, though, that honey gets more flies than vinegar. Now, I will also say that when it comes to the show, pronouns, we do respect them. If you don't want to do that on your own time, that's your business. But here we do, and it's also.
Does that include neopronouns?
Yes, Destiny. Yes, Destiny. That does.
Yeah. Quick follow-up questions. Can we refuse to say pronouns if we just use the person's name instead?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Are we respecting neo names?
Of course, Destiny. Okay.
I should just interrupt. Dylan, can I even wear this on Twitch? Is this okay?
It's fine. Just don't
Yes,
shake your head too much.
I promise you it's okay. I promise
Okay.
you.
Okay, all right.
Put it like a
Okay.
hot tub in the background and you're A-okay. You can wear anything on this site, all right?
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay. God, I don't understand neopronouns. I need to figure out what the fuck any of that is. Anyway, so let's move on. Is there any rules that I forgot? I don't believe so. Is there anything that needs to be discussed, any rule you don't understand, or anything you need me to clarify?
Yeah. What do we do if you say to stop talking?
Stop talking.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to go into the first topic. And it is a topic that, of course, it is the anniversary of 1 year ago and 1 day. January 6th occurred, which was an event that happened at the Capitol. I won't put any moral statement upon it, even though I think everybody knows what I think of the day as a personal witness to it. I want to ask you all, how do you think January 6th should be remembered? And what do you think its impact on history will be? We're going to start in the top left-hand corner with Cam Higby.
Yeah, sure. So, I don't condone the January 6th attack, right? I think it's it obviously bad, right? People got hurt. They broke into the Capitol. It was wrong and bad, but I don't think that it ranks up there with Pearl Harbor and 9/11 like certain politicians might allude to. And I mean, I guess a lot of my argumentation will kind of revolve around some of the misinformation that's floating around about this event that might come up in this stream, or maybe it won't. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I obviously think it's bad. So let's move on to the next person.
Wonderful. Now I'm going to throw it over to Destiny.
Yeah, definitely bad. I'd rank it somewhere between Nagasaki and Hiroshima in terms of badness. Maybe not quite up to Pearl Harbor, but it's definitely up there. You know, big bad event. Yeah, that's all I got. We'll see where we go on the panel. Obviously, it's bad. Some people are exaggerating it, but there's like weird lies being told on both sides about it. But I guess we'll see what we get into on the panel.
Okay. Next, I'm going to throw it to the HakeReport.
I think that we should remember the truth about it, and hopefully its impact on history will be that some of the blatant lies will diminish people's blind trust in the establishment and both the mainstream media, the phony politicians who are melodramatic about it, pretending to care about Officer Sicknick. And we take a good hard look at ourselves and the way that people want to just hate one another based on hype.
Okay, next we're gonna throw it over to IRI.
Yeah, I think Ted Cruz said it pretty well when he called it a terrorist attack. Republican senator from Texas. I would agree with him. It was a terrorist attack. I think that it was our fellow Americans misled by a guy who couldn't accept his defeat. I thought it was unpatriotic. It was also really amazing to see police officers fight in hand-to-hand combat for hours against a mob and protect our temple of democracy. I mean, in the words of Joe Biden, you can't love your country only when you win. So let's see what other people have to say.
Lecture
Great
fan.
American hero, Joe Biden.
All right, first, it wasn't a terrorist attack. We don't have a democracy. January 6th is being blown totally out of proportion for partisan reasons. When you're talking about January 6th, you got to differentiate. What are you talking about? Are you talking about the senators and representatives that validly and legally objected to counting electoral college votes because states had unconstitutional election procedures? Are you talking about people that were there that did not go into the Capitol, that did commit any crimes, that were not violent, that were legitimately peaceful protesters? Are you talking about the sort of the rogue elements of the group that actually did commit violence? Are you talking about people that literally walked into the Capitol, didn't even know what they were doing? It shouldn't even be a topic. I mean, it's so irrelevant to society. We shouldn't even be talking about it. This is important as, any local crime story. It's not that big of here's the reality. The reality is the Democrats are bringing this up and spending all this time on it and doing this huge electoral commission because they can't get anything done in Congress and they can't get anything passed. And so this is a huge distraction element. The real purpose is to try to paint all Trump supporters as terrorists. It's disgusting. And then to use domestic spy operations on Trump supporters. I mean, there's so many just bad parts about this. It shouldn't even be a discussion. It's turned into a total partisan hit job. And it's just so bad. The whole discussion about it. We should be talking about BLM and Antifa instead.
Okay, we're gonna throw it over to Merrick.
Crazy. Okay. So I think it's very obviously, very apparently an act of insurrectionary terrorism. It's kind of indisputable, actually. I do think that Kamala Harris saying that it's like, oh my God, if Pearl Harbor happened to 9/11 during World War II or whatever is like pretty fucking goofy. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to curse. It's pretty goofy. But at the same time, I think we also have to take this seriously and understand that just because they abjectly and very embarrassingly failed at whatever it is that their goal was, doesn't mean that we have to act like it's a big nothing burger. We can actually take this seriously without completely over-exaggerating it. So completely disagree with everything LectureFan just said.
Got you. Now I'm gonna throw it over to the paradigm shift.
January 6th bad. Benghazi. I could throw out a bunch of buzzwords here, and I feel like when we talk about January 6th, like I always say, I can empathize with people who were there. I get without saying, oh, they were just dumb or stupid, whatever. They, in their heads, had valid reasons that they thought they were fighting against. And in the reality of the world, everybody feels like they have a valid reason for whatever it is they do. And that's fine, that's sure, that's great, whatever. But not only was January 6th a mess, not only could it have been worse, but the response that we're getting right now, even having this conversation, is more like people are overblowing it to make it seem like the government's trying to throw it because they can't do much here and this and that. It's like there were a big crowd of people who were met with barely any resistance, and God forbid they got their hands on anybody. I know how many times people are going to say I'm playing the id poll card here, but when it comes to January 6th for me, I'm just saying if it was a group of people who identified as Black Lives Matter, it would have been a slaughter. At this point in time, we can't even begin to understand all the little nuances of why the defense on the Capitol wasn't put up more and every week. There's so many unanswered questions that I just have to say, January 6th bad. How should it be remembered? As a moment where people were fueled to believe something through these crazy conspiracy theories. Yes, crazy conspiracy theories. And it's just Like, why? Why? What is your end goal? What is your point? What are you doing here? And no, January 6th, bad. Simple as that. Bad, horrible, miserable.
TJump.
Yeah, so my position is that the January 6th riots are essentially the same as all the BLM riots, like burning down a police station and raiding a government organization to try to make political change without voting for it is pretty much the same. I mean, the only difference is the location. One is a federal government building versus one is a state building. I don't see this as any more of a way to try to overthrow the government than making no-go zones for where police can't go, or trying to usurp the government in by destroying police stations. I don't see any significant difference here, and so I can't really say why this would be any worse or any worth more condemning than any of the other BLM protests that caused significant damage, like the ones here in Minneapolis. So I don't really know what the big deal is, and it's why there's such a huge double standard, and that Republicans condemn all the BLMs but not this one, and then the Democrats condemn this one but not all the BLM ones, or to a much different degree than one another. It seems pretty obvious these are about the same in magnitude, except like very few people died in both cases, lots of property damage in both cases, both trying to subvert political authority. I don't really see any significant difference here. Definitely not comparable to any of the tragedies where tens of thousands of people died, but scale of magnitude, they're just riots. That's about it.
Way more damage in the BLM Antifa riots.
Okay. The floor is now open for general discussion. You have about.
I have a question. I have a question for leftists. How many people have been charged with insurrection, and how many people have been charged with terrorism?
Wait, is there a
47, 47.
Yeah.
40,
yes.
40,
terrorism is a federal criminal charge.
47 for insurrection, and I think like nobody for terrorism.
Well, it's an ongoing investigation. Like, sure, you know this.
Yeah, but they literally have people in jail and they haven't even been convicted of anything, and they're being held in 23-hour-a-day solitary confinement, which is like jarring enough to even make Elizabeth Warren speak up.
And welcome to America's prison system. Glad you guys have finally given a shit.
Yeah, literally.
Anyone here is going to advocate for putting people in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day. That's literally torture. I don't think you're going to get any of us sitting here going, wow, that's so awesome. Like, we don't want that. But at the same time, what we're
But you
saying...
won't say anything about it.
Yeah,
the reason why
not one of you leftists said that.
About it. We literally said that's bad. What are you talking about?
I want to comment on something Paradigm said earlier. He said that if it was BLM, if it was anybody who identified as a member of BLM, it would have been a slaughter. So do you have like any citation for that or any evidence that would be the case at all? Because we went
wait, Merrick, stop.
Dylan's talking. Sorry.
Okay, I don't need backup moderation though.
Sorry.
Okay. Merrick, the question was directed to Paradigm Shift, so I want Paradigm Shift to be able to respond. Paradigm?
Okay, so you say, do I have any evidence or citations that would have happened? Well, obviously that event didn't happen. But if we look at the protests for BLM that happened in Brooklyn that I was at,
slaughters.
It could have been. It was very close to. The only reason why
they weren't.
I was there. Like, we were beat up. We were assaulted. We were literally, like, the police themselves had to stop them, the other police, from, like, attacking them. And I have that on video. You can hear police officers yelling, like, nah, that's too much. That's too much.
This is a general question. I'm not sure of the answer to this, but did anybody die at any BLM riot? Like, any BLM protesters die?
Yeah. Lots of people.
Yes.
Way more.
Yes.
Yeah, way more.
No.
So
I'm talking about people killed by BLM. I'm talking about BLM protesters.
Yes,
Okay.
I can answer your question. So in my city in Austin, there was a pregnant woman who was hit in the stomach with a beanbag gun by an officer. Her baby died. There was also a young man who was on I-35, one of the days that I was there, who was shot with some sort of non-lethal agent. He was shot in the head, and I watched them drag his body off of I-35, and then he died. So yes, cops have absolutely killed people.
I'm glad we agree babies are people now.
5 Trump supporters died that day.
Yeah, one of them was crushed by other Trump supporters.
No, that's not true. It was an OD. I'll say this. There was 5 Trump supporters that died, but like, so Ashley, or I think it was actually 4, and Ashley Babbitt was obviously shot and killed by the Capitol Police. There was 1 heart attack prior to the storming of the Capitol. There was a stroke prior to the storming of the Capitol, and there was an OD just as it happened.
Merrick, I'm getting echo from your end.
Like, yeah, the only person that died that day was literally a Trump supporter that was shot and killed by the police. And there hasn't been any BLM riots that have been a slaughter. And there's been a hell of a lot more BLM riots than there has been riots driven by Trump supporters.
Right.
And
Like
why do you
billions
think
and
that
billions
is?
of dollars.
And the
This is so
BLM
stupid.
riots aren't based on anything real. The Trump supporters actually
I
had.
would love. Hold on, wait. I'm gonna save you the effort because I know it's my first time here and I'm the newbie guy. I'm gonna save you the effort right now. Don't do that. Don't.
The
Don't
Trump
say that, 'cause
supporters
it's
have a
like,
legitimate complaint. The Black Lives Matter do not.
Do you like my first stream ever was complaining about a cop pulling a gun on me and firing a bullet like 3 inches away from my head for literally finding like what? I think that if we're gonna go deeper into that, I think that that's gonna be a division between like what you see in your neighborhood and how you grew up versus how I grew up. I promise you, BLM has a legitimate complaint. Don't do that. Don't do
No,
that.
you
to
can
yourself.
look at actual
Yeah,
data. You
wait,
can actually look at
wait,
it.
but we should
stop.
probably just stick to the topic.
Okay, so I want to make sure like we don't all talk at the same time. I almost forgot. I forgot to say at the start. That's what I forgot. If you raise your hand, I will write your name down. If you find it difficult to get into the conversation due to the panel format, it can get kind of hectic, and I'll make sure eventually we get over to you. I just say that, so I'll write your name down. TJump. Okay.
What?
Ira,
Oh,
you
sorry,
say
man.
something? You haven't said anything yet.
Yeah,
by
I'll
the
say,
way.
what is the BLM riots or protests have anything to do? We're talking about January 6th here, guys. Let's stay focused here, okay? Let's talk about the January 6th event.
the double
we can talk
standard
about all the
is
riots over the
revealing.
course of America's history if you want. I mean, what's the point? Let's talk about January 6th.
That got brought up
Hypocrisy.
because Paradigm brought it up. That's why I questioned him, because he said, and I quote, if there was anybody there identifying with BLM, it would have been, quote, a slaughter. That's why it got brought up. Not because of any of us, Lecture Fan, or any conservative brought it up, but because Paradigm brought it up, and I questioned him.
It's a legitimate thing because there's a double standard. The Black Lives Matter protesters are endlessly given room to destroy, whereas the Trump supporters do one thing. Out of so many protests, one turned violent, and we don't even know really who's all behind it. So it's a clear double standard.
Yeah,
So-
the point
And
is
the
the
outrage
BLM
is the-
Antifa ones were way worse. We're actually way worse in terms of number of deaths, in terms of number of people killed, in terms of property damage, in terms of all these things. So you have literally like dozens and dozens and dozens of these extreme, severe, hardcore riots where people are killed and buildings are burned down. Literally, federal courthouses under siege for an entire summer. Federal courthouses under siege for not a word from the leftists. And then there's one, and then you have hundreds and hundreds of Trump rallies and hundreds of Trump protests, and not a single one ever. There's not a single crime committed, not a single thing wrong. I mean, they clean up after
Lecture.
themselves in the park,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna have this huge, oh my gosh, January 6th is like 9/11. It's obviously a partisan
How does that-
BS.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
there's-
what we're
so there's
calling
two
out. We're calling
things-
out the hypocrisy.
Stop,
Two
okay,
things
so
happening
I
right
say,
now.
First thing is I'm talking. So we're gonna go IRI, TJump, then Merrick. We're gonna go in that order and write your name down, Cam.
How does any of that, Lecture Fan, compare to interfering with the peaceful transition of power in America? We're supposed to lead by example here. What are you talking about? The federal court was stopped from doing nothing in the middle of the night because some people threw a stupid little bottle full of nothing at it? Who cares? Fireworks at it and shot at some people guarding the courthouse at night? Who cares? You're talking about the peaceful transfer of power in America. Are you kidding me? You're comparing the two?
There was no interference with the peaceful transfer of power. Do you realize that those people,
Those didn't have to evacuate the building with the nuclear football, right? That
January-
didn't happen.
Not for a lack of trying.
what Trump wanted, and what a lot of the January 6th protesters wanted was for senators and House of Representatives members to object to the Electoral College certification and establish a committee,
why they were
They were in
to
the
look
middle
into
of
the
that
facts.
when the
There was
protesters broke in.
point. There was no
They were in the
intention
middle of
to
that.
interfere
Senator-
with the
Why
peaceful
they brought a
transfer of
noose?
power.
One at a time.
Senator Langford was
noose
interrupted
was
while
fake.
they were doing that. So they interrupted the debate.
Destiny, you wanted to say something quick before we move
Yeah,
on?
shit.
TJump?
I'm not going to comment too much on opinions, but just to make things relatively fact-based, right? They were already in the middle of that objection process. That's not what people wanted. People wanted a singular actor to overturn the
One or
democratic
two
process.
people, a couple of
No.
people.
The call was
One or
for Trump. The call was from Trump on Twitter, specifically referencing some obscure idea that Pence could single-handedly overturn the democratic process. That's what people were looking for, not what was already happening, not the process that not only was already happening, but nobody had any reason to believe would stop, which was them going through their objections, which they did. They had the right to do so, and they did it. So that is just absolutely not true. Just making sure that's on the record.
Okay, I gotta throw this over to TJump quick. Lecture fan, did you want to respond to that? Want me to write your name down?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, like TJump.
Yeah, so I'm still not hearing like any
Also, your
comparison. here,
reverb
what
is
is
like
what
up,
is
like through the roof now.
my reverb?
Okay, sounds better.
All right. So I'm still not seeing the difference here between the January 6th riot and any other BLM riots. It seems like, again, they're all still trying to overthrow the government. Like the BLM riots destroyed a police station. They tried to take over parts of like areas of streets and blocks to block out police so they couldn't enforce it. They were literally trying to take locations from America and just subverting and overthrowing the government. So I don't see the difference here between the two. Like obviously both are bad. You shouldn't try to overthrow the government, but how is this the January 6th riot significantly different from what the BLM did, other than its location?
I don't see how the January 6thers wanted to overthrow the government. They wanted to preserve it from being overthrown.
Okay.
Well,
Merrick-
both could make that argument. That's
Merrick,
just perspective.
you're next.
So
But there
there's
was no evidence they wanted to overthrow the government.
so there's a couple things
just a
happening
claim.
here.
That's
There's a
projection.
couple. Okay,
It's Merrick
so there's a
Deville.
couple. There's a couple things that are happening here. The first is that you guys are acting like an entire group of people being very upset that their communities are currently and historically over-policed and brutalized by our
Not true.
police and military forces. I'm talking. It's not your time to talk. Thank you. So there's a big difference between entire communities who have been historically disenfranchised and abused by this country being upset and lashing out, and those, was it 7% of BLM protests being violent, and people thinking that their president is directing them to prevent the transfer of power. When there's all kinds of footage of these people walking in
Your
going,
mic's unplugged?
"Stop the steal." Did I just unplug my mic? No. Yeah?
We
Alright,
can
no,
hear
can
you.
I-
You
you're
keep
good.
going. Yes, we can hear
Okay,
you.
there's so much footage of people walking in saying "Stop the steal," looking at the cops, calling them oath breakers. They're walking out of the building when everything is said and done with their arms raised, going, "We did it. We stopped the election from being certified." They're chanting "Hang Mike Pence." There's footage of all of this. You can deny it and say that it didn't happen, but it's on camera. It's literally recorded. These people planned this ahead of time. This wasn't like we're frustrated with the fact that we are oppressed. It was that we have been brainwashed by our idiot president into thinking that this election is fake when it's clearly not. There's literally no reason for you to need to compare this to BLM. The only reason you're doing it is to deflect from the actual events of January 6th, which is what we came here to talk about, not BLM.
All right, can I get my response into what Destiny said
Melodrama.
earlier?
Sure, but
Okay.
then
It's
we
not
have.
melodramatic. You're mad because I told you not to talk over me, and you probably don't like women speaking to you this way. It's not melodramatic. It's that I'm using a firm tone of voice with you, and you're not going to speak to me that way. Do you understand?
Okay, lady. All right, lady.
Yeah, that's what I
Hey,
thought.
lecture
All right,
fan.
all right, so-
and then it's gonna be Cam after that.
Yeah, so Destiny and IRI are completely wrong. What Trump wanted with what Mike Pence did was actually a relative, admittedly obscure constitutional legal theory that, without commenting on the merits of it, called for the vice president to reject one of the state's electors on the basis that there was questions about the legality of it and the constitutionality of those electors, which then would have caused there to be no you wouldn't count those electors, and then if there was enough of them to make it so that nobody got to 270, then that would send the election into the House, and then the House or Congress under the Constitution. So the idea that this was trying to overthrow the Constitution or violently interfere with, no, like, you can disagree with that constitutional legal theory all you want, but there was nothing sort of violent or illegal about it. That was the theory. Mike Pence could reject it. They wouldn't reach 270, and then it goes into the House. That's what the Constitution says. That's what the legal theory was. There wasn't any violent or overthrowing or insurrection or anything about it.
So the word I use is undemocratic. We have a process by which we elect a president. The idea of trying to appeal to the vice president, I don't even know if you're making a real argument if this is like a character. The idea of appealing to the vice president to overthrow the results of the election is obviously undemocratic.
How is it undemocratic to allow to follow the Constitution and allow
because
Congress
regardless
to
of what
decide?
obscure provision is in the Constitution that might allow for this, which I don't think legal scholars were even unified in believing that that was something that they agreed could be done, right? Despite that, obviously there would have been a sort of constitutional crisis, right? Like, I think technically the executive can get away with not enforcing any laws that come from the legislative, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea that it's not democratic, right? You know this if
So
you've been
the-
to law
the-
school.
the
Hold on,
Constitution's not democratic.
Wait, hold on. The Constitution's not democratic, okay? But when you
That's
do
what I
legal
just said.
shit, when you do law, right, okay, there is a lot that's built on case law. There's a lot that's built on kind of the gentleman agreements that we have in terms of how we operate society. Just because something's on the books doesn't necessarily mean that it would even survive being tested in court, and it sure as fuck doesn't make it democratic. You know this as well as
Okay,
I'm
all right,
sure
let
you
me-
know this,
all right.
yes?
Okay, let me get a response into that, because doesn't matter if it's undemocratic. Guess what? Democracy sucks. Our founding fathers and our Constitution are specifically designed to be undemocratic. That's why we have a Senate. That's why we have a constitutional republic. We have a constitution. We don't have a democracy. So this idea that following the Constitution is undemocratic, yeah, it is, because democracy sucks. Democracy is purposefully what we're not supposed to have.
Okay,
It's
then I
called a
agree.
constitutional
What the-
republic.
I agree. Then. If you
Your
want to say that
democracy
Trump was
sucks.
acting in
Study
a
America's
totalitarian,
founding.
if
Study
you
the
want to say he was acting
Constitution.
in a totalitarian manner and he was being undemocratic, fine,
Yeah.
I'll agree with you. That's fine. Okay, I can agree
No,
with that.
Trump was fighting for the
Autocratic
people, though.
lecture fan.
Okay.
No,
wait,
it's
the
called
failure here-
Wait.
constitutional republicanism. It's
There's-
called constitutional republicanism.
Okay,
You guys don't
wait.
obviously know anything about the
Okay,
first of all,
Constitution or
let's
about
slow down,
American
let's slow down.
founding,
Let's
because
slow-
pure
lecture fan,
democracy is
lecture fan.
not what we're supposed to.
Okay. Cam, it is your turn.
That was
All
undemocratic.
right. So the reason
But that
that people
dramatic.
keep wanting to compare the January 6th riot to the BLM riots is because the BLM riots were objectively worse. Okay. They killed dozens of people, 25 people, if I remember correctly, $2 billion in property damage. People lost their jobs. They lost their businesses. They weren't able to put food on the plates for their family. Their businesses went permanently bankrupt. They were objectively worse. And you keep saying this like, oh, 7% of BLM riots were peaceful. Okay, 7% of flights flown on 9/11 were completely indestructive. That's a ridiculous stat, and it doesn't make any sense when you look at the raw damage inflicted by these riots. It is ridiculous. And the reason that people are infuriated by this is because there is no BLM Summer of 2020 Riot Select Committee, but there is a January 6th Select Committee. There is an in-depth FBI investigations that you're hearing about every day into these riots. Sure, there were lots of arrests and there were some FBI investigations. We saw this with the Rittenhouse thing. There was an FBI plane, whatever. There was stuff going on, but they're not looking into it as deeply as they are this. And the other thing, we keep acting like this is some kind of coordinated, organized insurrection to overthrow the U.S. government. It's not true. It's bullshit. It's bogus. Okay. The FBI's investigation literally found that there was scant evidence that this attack was coordinated in any way. They also found
Amen,
scant
brother.
evidence that
Amen.
Trump was involved.
Yep,
Okay.
correct.
Oh,
IRI,
please
you're
let me
next,
go.
and I'll write down American Paradigm.
Dude, you know the investigation is still going, right? You're aware that this is the largest investigation by the FBI ever, and you're claiming
know
that
what
it's all
happened.
resolved. Are
It's
you
on
nuts?
video.
Nope, stop,
Wait,
stop,
wait,
stop,
video.
stop,
I'm not done
stop.
yet. I'm
stop.
not done yet,
We're gonna
young
let-
genius.
We're going to let IRI finish, and I'm also going to write down Hake's name. Okay.
Listen, I'm going to teach you something today, okay? I don't know what they're
Okay.
teaching over there on TikTok, but I'm going to give you a little education lesson here, okay? First of all, I can't even imagine what they would have done if they had a couple of months to do damage like the BLM event took place. You're talking about what happened in a couple of hours compared to what happened over a couple of months. Do you see the disconnect there? Now let me move over to LectureFan over here to my side. LectureFan, I think you're talking about the Electoral Count Act, which just has the VP as simply a guy opening envelopes and announcing what happened. Even your own Republican senators disagree with you because they're now revisiting that, saying maybe we could make some changes to clarify what's going on there. Even Mike Pence disagrees with you. So what is this legal theory you're talking about that nobody seems to agree with you except
So
that
you-
creepy
okay.
dude, Alan Dershowitz,
All right,
whatever.
so you're admitting that it's ambiguous enough that they're considering clarifying it. And I don't know if you know this,
150 years
but you
old,
can
bro.
have
a lot
you
of
can
things
have
need
you
clarification.
can
Let him
have
speak.
you can have ambiguous laws that are subject to more than one interpretation. That's literally the definition of ambiguity under law, is that it's subject to more than one interpretation.
I'd really like to
And
respond
I don't
to Mr.
disagree. I don't
Guy who thinks
disagree.
he's really
I don't
important.
disagree with you that like a lot of people disagree with it, and that's why I said like I'm not even commenting on the merits about it. I'm literally not even commenting or saying I agree with that legal theory or not. In fact, I probably don't. So I'm not. But the point is that it's not some overthrow, violent, anti-constitutional thing. Sure, it's undemocratic, but the U.S. Senate's undemocratic. The Electoral College is undemocratic. That's on purpose.
Okay.
The whole
Can I respond?
Yeah.
Real quick.
We're going to, Cam, since. You
Okay,
were-
so
wanted to.
you just said that it's the largest scale investigation currently going on, and that it's still going on, so that my point was invalid. But you'd think that if this was the largest scale FBI investigation going on in the country with all of the resources they have, that they'd be able to pull something together within a year from the time that it happened. But apparently they haven't been able to do that. And I love how you're trying to taint the well by, oh, I don't know what they teach you on TikTok. That's hilarious, bro. You also said that you couldn't imagine what they could have done over months. Well, they could have done more over months. Like, what was stopping them other than them saying that they weren't going to, or that Trump supporter, like, what? I don't know what you mean. Do you think that it was the same group of BLM people at every single riot that resulted in 7-story buildings going up in flames? Ridiculous.
Oh, okay. We're gonna throw it over to Paradigm Shift, Merrick, Hake, then T-Jump in that order. Well, did you have something to say on that specifically, Hake?
I wanted to talk about the basis for the protests.
Okay, can you
and
wait
the
a
notion
little,
of democratic.
Could you wait a little bit after?
Yes.
Okay, Paradigm.
Okay, so I've heard a lot. I'm gonna try to respond to everything. I'm gonna say this to start it, and hopefully this rings out true to you, because I know at this point, from what I'm hearing, I'm not changing nobody's minds. I'm not shifting nobody's paradigms. Woo, there's a lot. Okay, I understand January 6th from a Trump supporter's mind. I've talked to many Trump supporters, many close to my friends that were used to be my friends who went there that day. The goal that I have gathered from everyone I've talked to seems to be all over the place. When we talk about, and since it keeps getting brought up, I'm just going to be the arbiter for that group. When we talk about BLM, and we talk about the months and months of damage and the politicians who egged it on, this and that and whatever, we end up in a scope where we have to ask ourselves, what is the main goal? And Merrick already said this, I'm sorry for repeating you, but when you talk about systemic injustice and there being no answer to it other than like, hey, if you're not going to be kind to us and police us in a way that makes us feel safe in our communities, we're going to violently lash out against you, since that seems to be the only language you understand. You end up at a point like the summer of 2020. When you go to January 6th, which is the point of what we're supposed to be talking about here, and we talk about the main goal of these people who showed up there to do what, per se, you end up with a bunch of fallacies that don't allow them to have jurisdiction to be there. And when we talk about, well, what about the response? What about this? What about that? They got away with it. The fact that it's an ongoing investigation that they can't seem to find answers on says a lot about Operation Legend and how they were able to rat down 1,500 people and put them in jail. Oh, but the politicians were releasing bail funds for them and everything. 1,500 people went to jail over this. Barely over 60 went to jail over the insurrection. Does that mean that the insurrection is less worse? Like, it's confusing to me that we're trying to either think about it as not that big a deal when the end goal of January 6th was, no matter who, I don't know how you could have watched that day and not seen this, but the end goal for them was stop the steal. Like, whatever disenfranchised votes they felt like, whatever they thought the election process was corrupt, whatever, they simply wanted the election to stop. And I don't know where in the world, like, unless you're just terminally online and you don't think it had any real world ramifications, like, do you not see these people egging on consistently? We want Donald Trump to remain the president. Like, at that point, how are we comparing things? The reason why January 6th sucks so bad is because, God forbid, they got their hands on somebody. God forbid it was a senator who got hurt. God forbid it was somebody who was bigger in this league and got hurt. The fact that it didn't happen doesn't mean that we just brush it off. It means, whoa, why did that happen? Why are we not analyzing that? Which is the investigation, which is the point everyone's been making.
Okay. Merrick, then Hake, then T-Jump, then I wrote down Cam's name. Okay.
Merrick, you are muted.
Oh, sorry, I forgot I muted myself. So I think it's a little reductive and a little silly to say that just because this wasn't organized by one person and everyone wasn't completely coordinated to brush off the idea of organization altogether, when we know that the Proud Boys were organized beforehand, we know the Oath Keepers were there organized beforehand, we know the 3%ers were. Bellingcat wrote an article the day before it went down. Let's see, the Washington Post wrote an article warning about all the people that were planning and organizing. NBC wrote an article and published it about people who were planning and organizing, showing receipts, showing the things people were talking about. That's 3 outlets, 3 major outlets that were telling people this is what's going to happen. This is what these people are saying. So to be like, well, you know, there wasn't one central hub of organization so then you can belittle the idea of organization, I think is like kind of slimy rhetoric, and it's not really very honest at all when we know that people were talking about this. Let me read you something. This one is actually really good. You can go to Washington on January 6th and help storm the Capitol. As many patriots as can be. We will storm the government buildings, kill cops, kill security guards, kill federal employees and agents, and demand a recount. Here's another one.
And who said
one
that?
Says,
And
these
where
are
did it come from?
These are anonymous posters. This one came from 8kun, which
From
is
where though? I'm asking. Like
8kun.
where?
It's a website called 8kun. Okay, so this is one that a lot of Trump supporters and a lot of people use. A lot of very far right members use. Marjorie Taylor Greene actually used it.
Did
for
these
a
have
long time.
timestamps?
This doesn't matter. These are from before
Impersonators.
January
Blanks.
6th.
Timestamps
If
are
you're
not
going to
timestamps.
talk about
Absolutely does.
Wait. Can I?
if it came before January
Wait, can I ask
6th,
clarification? Do you mean Inkun?
is it supposed to be Coon and not Kun?
I forget the exact
I don't know.
pronunciation. Okay, just get it.
I don't know.
Nobody's
I
ever
don't
heard
hang
of
out
it.
with people that go on this website. Yes, people have heard of it. Marjorie Taylor Greene used it. QAnon people use it. The far right uses it. Nazis use it. Pedophiles use it. Y'all's whole crowd is adjacent to people who use it regularly. So yes, a lot of people have
Never heard of
about
it.
this.
So you're
Never heard
citing
of it.
some
Okay,
obscure
well then
site
maybe
in
you're not as
that
good.
don't
Maybe you
have
shouldn't have the amount of
timestamps.
followers that you have on TikTok if you've never heard of this website, because this is connected to all kinds of QAnon and Patriot Prayer.
You're citing some obscure site, and you're not even like they don't even have timestamps. Somebody could have gone in and put these up
Okay,
afterwards.
if you could not start
no
with conspiracy theories before I'm even done making my point, that would be
I
super
think
great.
you're more on the borderline of
Super
conspiracy
great.
theorist than I.
These are
Because
major
you guys
outlets
own-
that are writing about these things.
The
So if you're trying
FBI's
to tell me
investigation
that
found
the
no coordination.
Washington Post and Bellingcat and NBC all got together and were in on some conspiracy theory, that's great, but that makes you look insane. So
No,
if you
fake
could let me
news.
finish
There's
my
a big
point,
difference between
would
people
be
going
great.
there and actually storming the Capitol. You're
That
citing
would
some
be
obscure
really,
some
really
obscure
great
website.
if you could stop talking while it's my turn to talk, because you'll have your turn later. Is that okay? Jesus. There's all kinds of things like this.
You're
There's
directly
all-
addressing me.
I'm not directly addressing you. I addressed a point you made, but it's been echoed throughout other people. It's my turn to talk. It's not yours. This is really easy to understand. Okay? Cool. There's all kinds of comments like this. So for you to sit there and say that there's no organization is extraordinarily dishonest. That was my point. And now if you want to say that it's all fake and none of it was real and all of the news outlets coordinated against you, now you can make your whatever conspiracy point you want to say to dismiss it so that you don't have to deal with it.
I think you're really the one that's more on the borderline of conspiracy theory here. You're citing some obscure website and the comments don't even have timestamps. You can't just say all of these things and then gaslight everybody else into thinking that they're crazy because you're not providing evidence.
These are coming from major news outlets.
It's my time. It's my you're
Fake
interrupting
news.
me now. You directly addressed me while you were talking. You said, maybe you shouldn't have all those followers on TikTok if you've never heard of this random website that I found online. So you did directly address me and I responded to you. Sorry if that hurt your feelings. But like, also you're citing like these Washington Post articles that are saying like the Proud Boys were going there. There's a big difference between people going there and people storming the Capitol, because there were 90% of the people that were there were completely peaceful. It was a very small faction of far right people that actually broke into the Capitol, and opportunist people that didn't know what they're doing, just walked in and walked around, right? So like the FBI, if do you think you're better than the FBI? Because the FBI's investigation found that there was no coordination, not that there wasn't coordination by one person or one group of people, that there was no coordination. That's what the FBI's investigation found. So if you think you have more intelligence than, and I don't mean intelligence like your IQ, I mean intelligence like information. If you think you have more information in front of you than the FBI, I'd love to see it.
Okay,
These
so
don't
give me a
contradict
second.
each other,
Give me a
though.
second. Okay, so Merrick, we're gonna have Merrick respond, and then we're gonna have to go back to the list because we have a bunch of people waiting. Hake, TJump, Cam, then Shift. Well, Cam's actually talking,
I don't understand what point you think you're making, because what you just said doesn't contradict what I said at all. I said because there wasn't a central hub where everyone got together doesn't mean there wasn't organization. And the way you originally phrased your point was dismissive of the idea that there were people organizing.
The
You
FBI
understand that?
found no evidence of coordination to break into the like a coordinated plan by anyone to break into the Capitol. And you're claiming that there was people online on some obscure website that has no timestamps of people saying that they were going to break in the building and claiming to break in the building. But
There's
there's
multiple
no
other
evidence
websites.
there. It's not.
Okay. Do you want me to
doors
send you
are
the
unlocked.
sources? Do you want me
The
to
doors
send
are
you
unlocked.
Okay,
the
we're
links
gonna-
and the sources
we're
that'll
gonna-
show you all
okay,
this stuff?
so you can
I
all
can DM you.
Okay, you can all link the sources in the group DM. We're gonna go to the next person, which is Hake. Destiny, what are you resting your hand? Are you raising your hand? I
Why
can't.
the fuck would I rest my hand on top of my fucking head when I can rest my hand on my desk in front of me? Obviously, my
I
fucking
never
hand
said
is
you were
wrong.
intelligent. Okay, where's your name now? Okay, Hake.
Black Lives Matter was pandered to by the establishment, and the January 6th, the Trump types, they're getting less and less representation in the government. The establishment has failed to convince many people, most Republicans to this day, I think, most Republican voters to this day, that this election was free and fair. And I think it's honestly been that way since 2000 between Republicans and Democrats, each thinking that it was unfair, stolen, whatever. And it seems like it's only gotten worse over time as we've gotten more divided. The motivation for the riots, or the protests, which turned into a riot in part, was what many felt were election shenanigans. We had the virus hype that caused liberals to shut down businesses and open up the voting, the mail-in voting, so any idiot could vote, no matter whether they care about the country or not. Trump was saying that it could lead to voter fraud. Everybody says, no, that didn't happen. A lot of people are unconvinced that that didn't happen. So they pushed for dumb liberals to vote like I've never seen. The mainstream media and the social media establishment pushed and fought very hard against Trump from the time that he was running for office throughout the whole time. And they were campaigning against Trump. They've been campaigning for Black Lives Matter, or the Me Too movement against men. The subversives hoped that the endless reminders and making it all too convenient to quote unquote vote would help them topple Trump. And Trump insists to this day, I think, that he won by a lot. Whether the enemies of America were able to get all the useful idiots to vote against Trump, or whether they used other means and got away with it, we don't know. But that's the reason for the protests. It was a democratic motivation that those people were protesting. They weren't trying to overthrow democracy. They were trying to save democracy in their minds. And a lot of fair-minded people think that way, even to this day. But the people had suspicions about it. And January 6th was a setup. We know that DC is notoriously corrupt. They let Antifa and Black Lives Matter run wild and burn down the church, I think, across the street from the White House. They let Antifa and Black Lives Matter and others, feminists, invade the official spaces and assault cops. And the Democrats are saying, oh, don't be so mean to the protesters, cops. In Charlottesville, we had a setup during Trump's thing where the lawful, mostly peaceful, white Unite the Right protesters protested against the tearing down of Confederate American heroes. And they let the cops did not separate and keep order, separate the parties. Antifa, Black Lives Matter, mostly attacking the whites over there. It was a setup so that they could declare an unlawful assembly. I suspect that that's what happened here, where they did not have enough security. I think Trump wanted 10,000, at least in an offhand comment, wanted 10,000 National Guard troops to protect, to keep law and order. He's a law and order president. He doesn't want this. And so I think that it was a setup to exploit and encourage people who are angry and a little off. There's some in every big crowd to go wild and make the conservatives look bad. And now it's a clampdown on everybody's freedoms.
Okay. Next is going to be TJump. Then I'm going to go to Destiny before Shift because Shift's talked more than Destiny.
Yeah, so a few things I wanted to comment on. Merrick mentioned that the difference between the BLM protests and then January 6th was that BLM has like a legitimate claim to the fact that their group has been prejudiced against for the past X number of years. I mean, having a reason you think that they should be allowed to try to overthrow the government doesn't make it not trying to overthrow the government. It's just doing it with a reason that you adhere to. And so the fact that you want that, you think that reason is legitimate doesn't mean that their treason is less treason than the Republicans' reasons of what they think is legitimate. If they're taking land from the American government and preventing any type of policing of that land, it's literally successful treason in the case of the BLM case, whereas the January 6th riot was a failed treason, if anything. But I think there's no evidence either of those things were planned, like on the BLM side or the January 6th side. Like there is no federal evidence that the storming of the Capitol was actually planned by any group. It was just kind of a crime of passion that just happened, just like the burning of the police station. I think it's just like any protest, it just got out of hand. I don't think there was any organization that was legitimately planning to do this. And I don't see any evidence presented by any of the investigating organizations that indicate that. To me, it seems like, and the reason I'm comparing this to BLM is because the question is like, how should we see the January 6 riots? And I think we should see the January 6 riots as equivalent to the BLM riots. It's just a political kind of motivated riot in order to try and push a political ideology. I don't know how we should see those things. Probably don't see them as bad as most other people do, but however we decide to see one is probably about the same as we should decide to see the other. And then of course we should incorporate death count and property damage as to how bad they are. But I don't see the January 6th riot as sufficiently worse in any case.
Destiny.
Okay, so recentering around like rather than trying to quantify damage or look at the number of people dead, I think the reason why the January 6th riots come off as such a big deal to people is because these were unique, and that it seems like the people that were here protesting were doing so specifically to stop a democratic process and specifically because of messaging that they'd received, like quite literally from the president of the United States. I think that's why there is like a unique kind of bad taste at our mouths relating to January 6th over the entirety of the BLM protests. Not to say that the rioting was okay, although I do think there is a big difference between rioting against a police station versus rioting at the Capitol to overthrow a democratic process. But I think that it was Trump leading the charge, essentially, with the propaganda from the top down about how the election was insecure, the election was stolen, you need to fight back into your country, Pence has failed us. I think that when that kind of messaging comes from the president of the United States, and not like in a vague, like, well, you know, like maybe, you know, crime rates are, but like in a very direct, like your country is being stolen from you, like we need to fight back. When that kind of stuff is being said over and over again from the president, and then you end up having a huge protest that turns kind of ugly, and then you end up getting people storming a Capitol building, I think that there's a legitimate cause there for concern where it's like, well, this is a pretty unique event. It is probably a pretty negative thing that should be avoided in the future. And I think it's okay to look at it in the uniquely horrible way that it was done as a uniquely horrible event, not just another riot.
Can I respond to that really quick? So
Sure,
if you're gonna you know, approach the merits of it that way and say it's uniquely bad because of that, well, like the BLM and Antifa riots are uniquely bad because they attacked the very foundation of what America is and called America a racist country and said our Constitution is racist and said, you know, the country was actually not founded in 1776. It was founded in 1619 and really attacked the country to its core. So, you know, if that's what your argument is, actually BLM and Antifa are even worse. Moreover, though, there are some genuine concerns about the election integrity in this country. And so if the lesson that you're going to take from January 6th is that we need to crush these people instead of actually addressing their good faith concerns about election integrity, that's really messed up. You know, actually, public confidence in the election is a really important thing. And when you change the election laws and you get rid of security mechanisms that we have in our elections so that the public no longer trusts the election outcomes, maybe that's a time to think and say, hey, you know, actually we do need people to believe in the elections. Maybe we shouldn't do all of these insane election laws that destroy the integrity. So you guys are taking the exact wrong lesson from it.
What you just said is so incredibly true and incredibly important. The last half, not the first half. Everything in the first half was insane and stupid. I don't know who the fuck you're even talking to for it. But for the public needing confidence in the electoral process, that is incredibly important. Unfortunately, the undermining of that process came from the big man himself, came from Donald Trump.
No, that
if you're
came
looking
from
for-
Democrats changing the laws.
No, it didn't, because half the
Yeah, it
laws that
did.
you guys claim, you didn't even know when they were changed. Not to mention that every single one of these laws were tested in court because, of course, every motherfucker was
Eric,
suing.
can you
Fucking
mute when you're
states were
typing?
suing. States were suing other states. I think Texas was taking other states to court to try to get their election laws challenged. So you better fucking believe that if there was a law that somebody didn't like, there was a federal challenge to it. And guess what? All those federal fucking courts, love them or hate them, Trump did a really good job at appointing judges to them. But despite all of the federal judges that were appointed by Republicans, despite all of the Trumps that Trump and Trump's cronies made to get some of these things overturned, despite all of the other challenges to the processes, despite all of the other evidence of the videos of the ballot box stuffing, despite trying to take it to the Supreme Court, all of these systems that, ironically enough, you said earlier, Republicans had no representation. They did have representation. They had both halves of Congress. They had complete control of the executive branch, and they had control of the judicial branch. The idea that through all of this, they still didn't manage to get any single noteworthy challenge through. And you're still going to sit here and tell me the election wasn't secure, despite the fact that Barr himself rebuked Trump, despite the fact that the FBI, alongside Barr, investigated these machines and said, no, they look pretty secure to me, despite the fact that every single intelligence agency that commented on these issues said, nope, everything looks secure. You're going to sit here and try to peddle shit about how, Democrats hyped up Russiagate while you're fabricating responses from Trump about our election machines when he's probably never even stepped inside an election booth. Like, come on. You have no you have no actual reason to say
you're
there's a genuine
conflating.
concern. No,
You're conflating two things. Hold on, you're conflating two different things.
Let me finish my response before you ramble again, okay? You're trying to say there are genuine concerns about election integrity. There are no genuine concerns. There are a lot of concerns by Americans, but only because they were misled by Trump to believe it, and that is my entire basis by which I say the January 6th stuff was horrible, because it was uniquely horrible because a bunch of Americans, apparently you included, were misled by the President of the United States to think that their country was undergoing election fraud, which never was proved to happen by anybody, including Trump's entire government. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so you're conflating two things, and you're talking about something that I wasn't talking about. So there's one thing is having mechanisms in place that do not allow us to verify whether the election is free and fair. For example, not checking voter ID. Not requiring signature match. If you don't check voter ID and you don't check signature match, then it becomes very hard to say at the end of the day that was a free and fair elections. You're talking about whether there was hard proof later on. Here's the thing: it's very difficult to prove fraud, especially when you've got laws in place that make it even more difficult. For example, not requiring signature match, not requiring voter ID, et cetera, et cetera. So when the Democrats for 20 and 30 years, and you're talking about the courts not, accepting challenges. Again, that's a different thing. But more importantly, it's the Democrats and leftists that have infiltrated the courts in a lot of ways, where you've got judicial activist courts that are literally throwing out voter ID laws and saying voter ID laws are invalid and things like that. And so, that's what's driving this. Democrats for 30 years have destroyed the election integrity. And so now you've got people that don't trust the election because we don't have these security measures in place
Did you trust the election
anymore.
when Trump won?
I've had concerns about our election
No,
integrity
hold
for
on.
30
You
years.
on Twitter saying, I don't know if Trump's election was legitimate because he won.
I never said that. No, I
Because
don't
you're a
think so.
partisan hack, right? You only care about the election results that don't agree with you.
I never said that about
Lecture.
Biden's election either. What are you talking
Where's
about,
the
Destiny?
cracking, baby?
I never said
Where's
that
the
Biden's
cracking?
election's not.
The thing
Trump
is
won.
that nobody cried election fraud when Republicans were winning in landslides during the Trump terms, right? Nobody was talking about checking signature matching or voter ID. Like, we have these laws all over the country. They're different from state to state. We have yet to prove any major election fraud. Every time it's looked into, my understanding is the two times it looked into, it was Republicans that were committing more fraud than the other. Was it in North Dakota or another one where there was like a box of ballots, or you always get these random stories, but anytime they go to try and find all this election fraud, they typically don't find it. It just doesn't seem to be a thing.
Because
and,
when
if
you commit
cry,
fraud, you hide it.
If you want to cry that we need voter ID or we need signature matching, and you know what? I won't even say that's crying. I think there could be arguments there. That's fine, but holy fuck, you are more than 20 stones throws away, okay, from there was election fraud because of mail-in ballots and the election was fucking stolen, okay? Saying I did not get my voter ID laws, that's not the same as there was election fraud 100% and the election was stolen. We need to go and riot in the fucking Capitol.
I agree.
Then why are you talking about them? Nobody's
isn't
talking
just
about voter
something-
ID law here.
Yeah,
This
we're
isn't
Why are
talking
you
about
okay with the
public
down
confidence
ballot
here,
races?
though.
Okay,
I mean,
Lecture.
how many
Why are
years
you
did we
okay
deal
with
with
the down ballot?
Okay, 1 second. Okay, I want to make sure that we get the other people on the list to talk, which is going to be Shift, then actually IRI, then Cam. Shift.
Okay, I made this reference during the Hippy Dippy recruitment podcast, so I'm gonna do it here too. Tom Scott did a beautiful video on election integrity, and he brought up the case of Estonia and the idea of electronic voting as the most secure way to run an election. And there's a caveat with that. Obviously, you don't have to actually commit election fraud. You just have to make people think that there's election fraud. Any bad actor can pull that off. Fan, I understand where you're coming from where you say people don't have confidence in their elections. That is a very good point. However, not only did I fucking address that earlier, like, I don't know if you're not listening to me or if, like, I'm going crazy here. Because I said, I get what you're coming from. I do. Like, I swear to God, I do. But any of the actions of January 6th had jack shit to do with actually appealing to the correct people to actually get their concerns like answered. There was no evidence of fraud the same way there's no evidence that anybody planned January 6th. And then you have the nerve to say, like, or I'm sorry, now I'm just coming into the entire conversation. Somebody had the nerve to say something about BLM and Antifa being worse than by objective measures, it being worse, and to validate that with, well, whatever they're fighting for doesn't make it a difference. Like, yo, so when, and I hate to keep going backwards, but apparently y'all like to skip history class. So 1964 to 1965, the civil rights riots that caused LBJ to pass, I might be wrong on that, the Civil Rights Act. Like, at some point, marginalized groups have consistently been at war with the oppressive systems of police officers, of government, to get them to enact actual change that will do better, since the people in the country seem to not want to do better. So, like, Antifa, BLM, let's stick to BLM because Antifa's a whole nother rabbit hole. Like, is BLM not an extension of that? Are we not saying there's still issues that you did not address? There are not laws in place to protect us from these things happening? Are these things happening at all? And I will repeat for the last time. Yes, they are happening because I exist in this world. Like, I don't know what you want me to, how do you want me to, like, get this across to you? But BLM has a legitimate cause. Are there actions matching that cause? Fuck no. Are there bad actors within it that have more power than the people on the ground who are actually talking about what needs to be changed? Absolutely. But, like, January 6th is nothing more than a 8chan poster talking about I'm Q and I want to, like, come on, man. And I'm going to end it on this point because somebody said it and it pissed me the fuck off. The statement, stop killing black people, is not a political statement.
Okay. Well, now gotta throw it over to IRI. Actually, yeah.
Listen, lecture fan, I love you, man. I've known you a long time here, but you know you trust the results of the down ballot races, right? You accept that all those elections went fine where Trump was at the top. And why do you have no issue with states like Florida and Texas? Does it happen to be because Trump won those states? Is it just states that Trump lost that the problem is? I mean, really? Come on, bro. Attorney General William Barr, as Destiny said there was no widespread fraud. He had no reason to do that. Trust me, I'm sure he looked real hard to try to find some. And in fact, most of the cases we've seen of voter fraud is people trying to vote for Trump illegally. And where is that pesky Kraken, man? We're still waiting.
Okay, Barr also said that mail-in ballots are the most susceptible to voter fraud, as did the Jimmy Carter Baker Commission. Everybody that's looked at it said this: all mail ballots are more susceptible to voter fraud. And then about the down ballot races in Florida and Texas, notice that I have not sat here and said that I believe 100% that there was mass voter fraud and that Trump won the election. I never said that. What I said is that there are genuine, legitimate concerns about these laws that Democrats have put on the books in various states over the last 20 to 30 years that have led to a massive drop in the public confidence in elections and have led to January 6th and riots and people engaging in violence.
You know
and
why?
your guys' response to that, your guys' response to that, instead of addressing that on a good faith basis and say, hey, you know what? It is insane to not have voter ID. It is insane to do all mail ballots and send them out, just sprinkle millions of ballots out across the land and then hope they come back and everything's fine. That is insane. Let's address this and let's address these good faith concerns and try to raise no, instead of that, you attack people and you keep pushing these insane laws all so that the Democrats can win elections, because you know what? You guys need uninformed, ignorant people voting that don't have any, that's literally how you got Democrats win elections.
That's not
You
true
guys
because
need
there are more
better ideas,
Republicans
buddy.
than Democrats in all courts across the United States right now. Sorry.
Okay. So this is like to everybody in here across the aisle. Can we stop like pretending that it's just Republicans that sow distrust in election integrity? And Destiny, you said this earlier, that it came from the big man himself, Trump. And I think you'll probably agree with what I'm about to say. It's definitely coming from Democrats too. I mean, we dealt with the Russia hoax for how long? That led to an impeachment, which I would argue is worse than a bunch of morons storming the Capitol building with no clear plan. Because an impeachment trial actually can result in the ejection of a legitimate president. And they didn't just do it once, they did it twice.
Okay, first of all, when you say Russia hoax, there's two different ways that we can go with this. In terms of Russia actually flipping votes, that was never the main contention. The main contention was that Russia was operating with foreign agents within the United States without proper disclosure, which they were. And the Mueller investigation turned over those indictments. It revealed some of those organizations were working here. The most notable one being the it's IRA, Internet Research Agency, I think is who they were called, that were running a whole bunch of social media accounts that were trying to influence Americans to vote a certain way or to undermine confidence in the electoral process. If you're calling that a hoax, this stuff was real.
Do you think that Trump colluded with Russia and had some kind of organized campaign to make sure that he was installed as the president? Because that's what he was impeached for. Am I wrong?
The second impeachment had to do with the Ukraine
The
stuff.
first-
At this point, I don't even. IRI can speak the first.
Oh, true. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was the Ukraine stuff. You're right. That was the Ukraine phone call, and that was also bullshit. So
wait. The part where he threatened to withhold aid that was already approved by Congress. That was bullshit. That was all fabricated.
Yeah,
He did nothing wrong. Trump did nothing wrong.
Wait, he did nothing wrong, or it was all fabricated? Which one? I'm getting two different answers here. So he didn't threaten to withhold the aid, or he did threaten to withhold aid, but he had the right to do that as a president.
We have the transcript from the phone call. Everything that Democrats are saying about it, it was the made up part.
I don't even think that he mentioned withholding aid in the phone call, like at all. Did he? I mean, it's been a long time since I've read the transcript.
He asked.
Without jumping to the whole Ukraine issue, let's say
Biden is
already on the Russia hoax stuff, which is already still off topic. Okay, there were credible issues that were brought up in relation to Russia having some level of penetration into our media atmosphere in ways that we were not aware of. I mean, if we don't believe this, I don't know what to say. You can read the results of any of the Mueller investigations or any of the digging there. And,
oh my gosh, they bought a Facebook ad.
That is a fundamentally different thing. LCTRfan, you sound like you get all your news from Facebook.
But Destiny,
you're like a prime target to this, okay? But that's a fundamentally different claim than saying that like the votes were actually rigged, which is the claim that Trump is making. That would be more akin to a Democrat saying like Russia rigged the votes. Sure,
Destiny, but. Okay, so you're right. The first impeachment was the Ukraine thing. You're right. That was my mistake. I'm sorry. But there were definitely Democrat politicians in this country pushing the lie that Trump was colluding with Russia to ensure his installment as president. Absolutely, 100%.
Sure, there might have been, but like in that case, do you want me to I'll condemn them both. I'm going to condemn both of them before I'm going to give Trump a pass on saying that the election was stolen, right? So I don't know what the point of this is.
I don't think the election was stolen. And I said, like, when I said that, I said that I thought you'd probably agree with what I was about to say. But like, I just don't want this like feeling that it's just Republicans that are
Democrats said Bush stole the election.
System.
Democrats said Bush stole the election.
Not brought up Bernie getting robbed. That's the standard right-wing talking point, right? You're supposed to bring up Bernie got robbed.
It's not like Trump is a Pied Piper. People have been worrying about so-called voter fraud for decades. And now more than ever, because we have a dishonest country, we have a dishonest establishment and a media. So it's a legitimate concern. And it's not just because Trump lied to them, quote unquote, lied. And I don't believe that he thinks that he's lying, by the way. It's people who are seriously concerned about it.
I mean, like, first of all, when Trump is literally making phone calls to
Destiny, you're going to finish this statement, then we're going to wrap this up. Merrick and Paradigm, you raise your hand, so you'll be the first to do any statements.
Was it the Georgia governor that Trump literally called saying, like, we need to find 31,482 votes? Like, how can you think that this is a good faith effort to investigate the electoral process rather than just trying to win the election?
That's
and also,
how Trump
as IRR said, it's so interesting to me that all of the votes for Biden were fake, but all of the down ballot votes that voted for Biden but then voted Republican lawmakers, all of those were legitimate. Like, it's so obviously selected for based on the partisan hackery. I don't know how you can see it as any other way. And then again, like, we have had so many independent organizations, I mean, within the federal government, like our intelligence agencies, the fucking FBI and the DOJ, all looked into the election shit. How the fuck is there all this goddamn widespread fraud, but nobody can fucking find it anywhere? When I feel like I'm getting a leak out of the White House every other fucking week for the brand of toilet paper that Trump wipes his ass with, how the fuck is there all this coordinated, top-down, bottom-up, widespread fraud, but nobody fucking found any? All I had were the same shitty 3 videos that were shown over and over again with a box sliding under a table where somebody's like, there they are, that's all the fucking ballots. Like, they were the lost fucking ballots from the ship of Atlantis that sunk off the Florida coast with the fucking hanging chads. Like, what the fuck? I don't know how you can make the claim over and over and over again that all this fraud happened, but it's not reported. We don't see. Where is it? Where is it? That's what I want to know.
Here's the point. When people commit fraud, they try to hide it.
LCTRfan, the future. Please listen. Okay, so we're wrapping up. If you want to make your ending statements, you can. Don't worry. Merrick, apparently her cat turned off the computer. The cat agrees with Hake, I assume. So we're gonna start it with a paradigm shift for wrap-ups.
All right, closing arguments. I did learn a lot just listening. At least I learned like what other people think. I heard a lot of bullshit. I'm not gonna cut it here. I heard a lot of bullshit, and Destiny and IRI cover this way harder than I could ever. So I'm just gonna say again, stop killing Black people is not a political statement. Is there reasons to believe in election fraud? I'm going to bring up Estonia again. Please look up Estonia. Please look up their voting systems, and it will give you a perfect representation of what happened in this country on a very small scale and how it can escape outwards. As far as election fraud, there has been no significant evidence of that. As far as January 6th and how we will remember it, I think that we're going to have this issue of people trying to downplay it because the severity of it doesn't hit us that hard because we are in an information age. We share things through computers, through social media, and it's easy for us to have so much discourse that it seems like another regular day. This was an event unique to itself because it stood in opposition to the systems that we believe in and that we trust above all. There should be no distrust in this market because we were literally watching. You've had Destiny said it already. You've had multiple people look over the votes. You've had recounts. You've had court cases. You've had this. You've had that. You've had phone calls where you've literally heard people saying, "Yo, can you help me get these votes?" Like, if the words coming out of these people's own mouths don't tell you that there's just no issue and people ran on a lie, then I don't know how to make you empathize with like the years and decades and centuries of abuse that America does to its own citizens through the same legal system that you wish now to tear down because it didn't give you the man you wanted to win.
Okay, next is going to be the Catwoman.
Okay, I'm sorry. I actually don't know where we're at now since my cat decided to turn my computer off. What's happening?
Statements.
Ending statements? Okay, closing statements are, I think that there is an abundance of evidence that shows that there were several paramilitary groups there. There was lots of planning across lots of social media sites. I realized that I probably should have clarified that 8kun is actually 8chan. It's literally the same website. I can understand why it would come across as obscure and why I was very confused as to why we were acting like this is not like a well-known website. But it was all over Twitter. It was all over Facebook. We know there was planning. We know that there were far-right influences there. We know that President Trump heavily encouraged it. We know that the purpose was to get them to stop from certifying the election. We know that there was the intention of people to murder senators. We know all of these things happened, and I think trying to say that it wasn't really that big of a deal is disingenuous cope.
Okay. Next, we're going to throw it over to TJump.
Was not expecting to be next. All right. So, I'm still just seems to be like people think they have justified reasons to try to overthrow the government. The BLM side thinks they have a justified reason. The Republican side thinks they have a justified reason, and they both try to overthrow the government in their own ways. One tries to overthrow the judicial branch, and one tries to overthrow the congressional one. So I don't. Again, I'm just not seeing a difference. Like, number of deaths is higher on the Black Lives Matter side. Property damage is higher on the Black Lives Matter side. They've actually successfully taken land for months at a time away from the American government. I mean, how should we see the January 6th riots? Like, pretty much the same as the Black Lives Matter riots. They're not significantly worse, so we should treat them both as bad because they're both bad, and we should try to like change things by electing people to not be idiots, which is tough, but I don't see that we should see this as any significantly worse than the BLM riots.
Okay. Next is going to LCTRfan.
Okay. Well, I like how Destiny pretty much admitted that the BLM and Antifa riots, in terms of number and property damage and death, were way worse, and then claims, oh, well, it's because it was trying to interfere with an undemocratic process. Well, the Electoral College is undemocratic. Democrats say the Electoral College is undemocratic all the time. They cry about it all the time, which, if that's the case, so is the U.S. Senate. And guess what? That's on purpose. A constitutional republic is about having individual rights that can't be interfered with, even if the majority wants to interfere with them. So there's a reason we have a constitution, and there's a reason we don't just, democracy is, two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. It's not a good system. It's called having a constitutional republic. But the point is, frankly, the best argument for objecting to the electors on January 6th was actually the fact that a lot of these states changed their election laws without going through the legislatures of those states. And so you've got Democrats unilaterally changing the election laws to make the elections less secure, and then running these unconstitutional elections and getting rid of things like signature match, getting rid of voter ID, accepting ballots after the election is over, doing all mail ballots, doing all this crazy stuff that's obviously going to destroy people's confidence in the election, and then being surprised when, people don't trust the election results. So look, we need to secure the elections. That's the most important part. And thank goodness we've had a lot of state legislatures following the 2020 elections that have passed new laws to provide new security provisions in our elections, and I think that's a great thing. And we think we need more of that. We need voter ID. We need verifying citizenship. We need to not have all mail elections. We need to have people show up on election day. We need to keep ballots in a single room. I mean, that's how you have a secure election. You have all the ballots in a single room with poll watchers and people watching. People come in, they show their ID, verify their citizenship, they get a ballot. You literally taking a helicopter and dropping ballots, millions and millions of ballots, just sending them out, and then allowing ballot harvesting and people going and picking them up, and it's all kinds of problems. And it tells you everything you know. When Democrats, in order to win elections, have to allow paid ballot harvesting, and they don't require voter ID and getting rid of signature match, what does that tell you when that's what the Democrats want? And the reality is that having a secure election actually protects the right to vote, because the truth is that when you're a citizen and you validly vote, if there's one other illegal vote, then they just took away your right to vote. So it's actually the conservatives and the Republicans that want to protect the right to vote.
Okay, next is going to be IRI.
Well, I think January 6th is a really sad day, honestly. A lot of these people were duped and misled by Dear Leader at the top as he gleefully watched them violently assault police officers for 3 hours in hand-to-hand combat, and sat at a little table on the side of the Oval Office and enjoyed it for 2 hours. And the January 6th Select Committee is just getting warmed up, my friends. So hold on, the ride's about to get bumpy here. And the FBI their investigation is still active, even though this Cam guy has said multiple times that they haven't found anything. I don't know if you know how the FBI works. Again, I hate to teach you some stuff, but maybe you learned today. The FBI does not release evidence when they have active investigations, period. So I understand they haven't come to a conclusion yet, but it takes time when you have 1,000 people break the law at the same time and desecrate our Capitol Hill. And you know what? As these people have admitted their guilt in court and been sentenced, almost every single one of them has admitted that they were duped and they will never again be involved in politics, and they can't believe this happened. So it's kind of weird to hear Hake talk about how these people actually really believed it and felt it when most of them admit that they were wrong in the end. And finally, I just want to say, when Trump won, I accepted it. I wondered what happened. I was curious. Did Russia do something? I felt like, whoa, Russia pulled a fast one on us. But then we had the Mueller investigation. I said, you know what? Let's wait and see what happens here. I wasn't sitting there going, you know what? Trump's not the president, and there was so much election fraud, and release the Kraken. I accepted that Trump won. And you know what I did? I got involved. and I worked hard, and we got 81 million of my friends to come out and vote for Joseph R. Biden as our new president. So it's time to accept
Amen.
it. Like Joe Biden said, you don't just love this country when you win. You got to love it when you lose too, and put in some hard work. Get working, Lecture. Start knocking on doors, buddy.
Okay,
I'm there.
next is gonna be Hake.
God bless.
Okay, so the downplayed BLM insurrection and terror attacks across the country. About those blacks who are complaining and the others who are grandstanding on their behalf, they need fathers. They need morals. They need character reform. They don't need police reform. And so they don't have a legitimate complaint because they need to look at themselves. We have a cultural problem of hate and blame and excuse making. And the relatively minimal violence of January 6th there pales in comparison to that of Occupy, BLM, Antifa, quite obviously. And especially when you compare the average conservative rally versus the average liberal one. Conspicuously, Antifa's Black Bloc was absent from this big protest, this Stop the Steal rally on January 6th, except perhaps maybe some removed their Black Bloc to reveal some MAGA gear. I don't know what that was about, but I saw that on Tucker's documentary, Patriot Purge. I don't think there's a serious investigation on what really happened. A lot of people who were convicted groveled to the government and liberals under duress on advice from like liberal public defender lawyers trying to get a lesser sentence, trying to get out of jail. Those were not serious admissions of being duped. The only big lie is the lie that everybody buys across the board, across the aisles, of anger. You don't have a right to be angry. We don't have country integrity, much less election integrity. We have open borders. We have mass immigration. We have, since the 60s, really, we have dishonest coverage, fake cries of racism and sexism. The real Americans are disheartened at losing their country. So it's not just voter fraud. It's just the country's being subverted and changed before their eyes by people who don't have morals and their same morals and freedom. The January 6th Select Committee is a joke. It's a bunch of Democrats and 2 failed Republicans. The FBI and so-called intelligence establishment, they're a bunch of liberals and rhinos. They're anti-Trump people. We all know this. They were constantly working against Trump. Biden and Pelosi and the rest of the phony politicians, they're clearly politically motivated phonies who have no concern about whoever's right or whoever gets hurt. All the people, again, are too busy hating one another over their false ideologies to care about the real truth or show love toward the marginalized Trump supporters.
Okay, now I'm gonna throw it over to Destiny.
Yeah, so I mean, like everybody likes to try to look over at the BLM stuff because I think they know deep down that the January 6th stuff is pretty indefensible, even though they'll try to defend it while also playing whataboutisms with other types of protests. The January 6th stuff I think was uniquely bad, as I said before, because we were basically getting propaganda, conspiracy bullshit from the President of the United States. And anytime you have the actual President of the United States, the guy that arguably has at his fingertips more information about probably any part of the world than any other individual ever in the history of all of mankind, when this guy is peddling bullshit and it causes your own citizens to try to rise up and overthrow the democratic process of electing your next leader, a process that is just, I mean, fundamentally important to the functioning of our country, I think that's always going to be a pretty monumental event. I think it should be seen as a monumental event. I think it's pretty sad that there are some Republicans that still try to downplay it. And yeah.
Okay, Cam Higby.
Yeah, so like I said in the beginning, I don't condone the January 6th riot. I don't think it was a good thing. I think it was bad. Shouldn't have happened. But it really was a small splinter group of the people that were actually there. 90% of the people were not doing anything right. But that doesn't change the fact, as we talked about earlier, that a lot was done by that small group of people when we talked about the 7% of peaceful BLM or 7% of violent BLM riots. Now, like I said earlier, I think the reason that everybody wants to compare this to the BLM riots, and I generally try to stray away from this line of argumentation, is because it is similar, right? And they happened very, very close together. The BLM riots were objectively worse, and they didn't get nearly as much attention from members of Congress, and some of the members of Congress even condoned these attacks. Now, I'm a really important person. You said again that the FBI investigation is still going on and they don't release information. Well, they clearly released a progress report. It was reported on by Reuters, and they literally said that they have no evidence that it was coordinated again a year later. And 1 year of investigating this, as you put it, the largest investigation in the entire country. In 1 year, they found nothing. So what does that tell you? The next thing you said, the January 6th Select Committee is just ramping up. Okay, well, like Hake said, it's a joke. Why is it a joke? Because it's a one-sided committee investigating something that they're all using as a political showboat with no opposition whatsoever. They've got Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, who both side with everybody else on that committee, and they have no challengers whatsoever. And Nancy Pelosi actually denied the challengers, Jim Banks and Jim Jordan. Which caused basically no Republicans to be on that committee except Cheney and Kinzinger, who really aren't Republicans. Yeah, what else did I take notes on? Yeah, it's a joke. Destiny said that it's like a whataboutism. I don't agree. I think that there are things that are similar, and people kind of connect them and are outraged by the difference in reaction to the two things. I don't think somebody said that it was heavily encouraged by Trump. I don't think that the actual riot was heavily encouraged by Trump. I think that he has some part in, like spreading the election fraud lie. But he literally said just prior to the attack, go out and let your voices be peacefully and patriotically heard. Him and his son had 4 months been at their protest, praising their supporters for being peaceful in a time of like so much political violence with the BLM stuff. So yeah, that's about it that I have to say.
Okay.
Oh, Republicans are not trying to tear down the system. Like somebody said, Republicans are trying to tear down the system. If that was the case, the system would be torn down because it only takes 3% of the population to overthrow the government. Obviously, they're not actively trying to. There hasn't been an attack since last year.
Okay. So what I'm going to do for this next topic, I'm going to put a 30-second timer on intros and outros and ask people to keep it brief so that we don't go. Okay? Wonderful. The next topic is we're coming on another anniversary, and that is in about 13 days. It will be 1 year since Biden was inaugurated as president of the United States. And so my question is, how do you review Biden's first year in office? I'm going to start with LCTRfan.
Well, I just thought it was hilarious when Destiny debated Rob Noor, and Destiny's whole argument for Biden's presidency success was spending the COVID relief bill, which is like just one of like 100 of these blowout spending packages Congress passes. Look, Biden's done nothing. It's been a total failure. We could go down the list one after the other. It's been a disaster.
Okay. Next, it's going to be TJump.
Yeah, so I think Biden's doing a terrible job. I think that just his overt amount of spending to try and fix everything is causing a huge amount of inflation, which is typical of the Democratic terms, because corporations are much less trusting of Democratic leaders, and so you do have a lot more inflation during Democratic governments, which is a problem, especially because we're just coming out of a COVID pandemic, and so I think that because of a lot of Biden's decisions, the inflation is going to continue at a much higher rate than if we had a Republican, just because companies like Republicans better because they make more money. I think his decision to pull out of Afghanistan was really sketchy. A lot of Americans got trapped there. And I mean, the Taliban decided the date we were supposed to leave by. The impact on the starvation of the Afghan people is horrible, but that was a tough decision. So I think that the combination with his bad economic decisions, he's been forced to make some really tough decisions regarding what happens to people's lives. And I don't think his decision on those was the best. I think there was a better way to do the pullout rather than just a cold turkey, just leave. So I'm definitely not happy with Biden, and I never thought he was going to be a good president. That's why I didn't vote for him or anybody. But yeah, overall, I think Biden's terrible. We shouldn't have had any of those people in office.
Okay, 30 seconds is over. Actually, seconds. But I'm going to throw it over to Paradigm Shift.
I am not a terrible fan of Biden, but I am under the impression and understanding that we are still in a pandemic, and I understand the absolute will of what people want him to do versus what he's actually doing. I am very disillusioned from Biden's first year in office. It feels very weak. It feels very underwhelming, and it's not giving people a lot of confidence in the Democrats. But I am willing to let bygones be bygones and say I've seen at least some incremental provisions in my communities and communities across the nation that have at least helped in some way or some form. And I'm just going to have to keep hoping that I see that progress through the rest of his term.
Okay. Next is going to be Eric.
So I actually am not as enraged about Biden as I think most leftists are. If Twitter is any indication. I don't think that he's been nearly as colossal a total failure as I anticipated, or as everyone in my circles is saying he is. I do break with leftists in that I don't think withdrawing from Afghanistan was ultra super pog, but the only reason I think that is because I really don't like that a lot of Afghan people are going to die now. That really, really sucks. I really don't like that the Taliban is in control now. That really, really sucks. But yeah, unemployment is really low. He's doing a lot of things for the environment that I didn't actually think he was going to do, so that's pretty cool. He did some stuff for COVID more so than I thought he was going to do, so I would give him a meh, but I thought it was going to be bad.
Okay. Now we're going to throw it over to Hake.
Joe Biden has pushed nothing but evil since he's been taking office. It's like Obama continued, but we're already more corrupt and degenerate and accepting of evil. And it's a shame. He's brought back abortion, fought for Roe v. Wade as a so-called Catholic. He reinstituted, I think, the Mexico City policy, or took it away, or whatever the thing is, to fund abortions internationally. He stopped building the wall. He's trying to let as many illegals and so-called asylum seekers in. He favored the communist shutdowns, the overreaction to the virus. He reinstituted the LGBT agenda in the military and is fighting against normal Americans, trying to so-called root out extremism in the military. And these people are not trustworthy in judging who's extreme. They're extreme. And he's busy witch hunting whites and joining in on the attack on men and on Christians. And he's endlessly lying, so it's a shame.
Okay, next is going to be Cam Higby.
Yeah, so I think so far, colossal failure. The Afghanistan withdrawal obviously resulted in the deaths of hundreds of people and 13 U.S. service members. And attached to that, we also have the drone strike that killed 10 civilians, 7 of them being children under the age of 10 years old. Let's see, we've also got the pandemic claiming that, he's not going to shut the country down. He's going to shut the virus down. Here we are almost a year later. The border crisis. There's also a thing with the census Trump was working on. He didn't want to he had policy ready to not include illegal immigrants in the census, and Biden shot that down. That was one of the things he did in his first 100 days, which I completely disagree with, because that's almost like a 3/5 compromise kind of tactic, where these people don't have the right to vote, but they're still going to be included in the census in whichever state they choose to go to, which is likely going to be a blue state. And that results in that state getting more electoral voting power, congressional seats, etc. And then, he falls asleep during climate crisis or during the climate summit and other times. And he obviously has dementia.
Okay, I'm going to throw it now over to Destiny.
Biden is a true American hero. What an unbelievable first year. I don't think anybody thought that he was going to come this far. We cut childhood poverty in half with an amazing COVID relief bill, with an amazing quasi-UBI, the thing that Yang said he was going to do, Biden almost delivered on. We got an increase in the child tax credit, which was historic relief for impoverished families, for working class families. We got the infrastructure bill that he brought 10 or 15 Republican senators over. Nobody said it. Everybody said it couldn't be done. Nobody thought you could get Republicans to vote on massive legislation. The largest infrastructure bill passed in U.S. history. Okay, Trump couldn't get anything done. McCain stopped Trump from even getting rid of healthcare. And look at Biden, his first year, and historically divided Senate, 50-50. He manages to pass major legislation, bringing Republicans on board, manages to get us out of Afghanistan finally. It was a bit of a road bump to do it, for sure, but we're gone. We're actually out of it. How long has it been since we actually left the fucking country in the Middle East? Trump said he would do it. It didn't happen. Bush said he would do it. It didn't happen. Obama said he would do it. It didn't happen. And guess what? I don't actually remember Bush said he would do that. But guess what? We finally got out under Joe Biden, who was willing to take the political hit to do it. What an American hero. Over 100 million vaccinations. He beat his timeline by twice as fast as he said he would. Just an amazing president. Every side, looking at him on camera, he's a strong man. He walks up and down the stairs. Great. Way less belly fat than Trump has. Just, God, he's an American hero. I almost would volunteer for the military if I wasn't so old. I would join just to serve under Chief of Commander, or Commander-in-Chief Joe Biden.
All right.
Muted.
He's being censored right now by the Republicans on this panel. Bring it back. Your mic is muted. IRI, you have it muted in Discord. You push the mute button in Discord. It's in Discord. There you go. Go ahead.
My bad. My bad. Listen, I was so excited. I didn't want them to hear all my clapping and cheering. Look, Biden inherited a giant steaming pile of dog crap, aka the Trump administration, okay? This guy took apart our federal government. He had a lot of work to do. Trump didn't help with the transition, didn't even show up to the inauguration. So come on, give the guy a little bit of credit. And as Destiny pointed out, he's got a 50-50 split Senate, a 3-seat lead in the House, still got infrastructure done. And Destiny, it was 19 Republican senators that joined him on that. That's incredible. Trump failed to do infrastructure for 4 years, the lowest hanging fruit on the tree. Americans were begging for investment in infrastructure. And look at this. The stock market keeps hitting record highs. We just hit 3.9% unemployment. We pulled out of Afghanistan and the longest war in America's history. I think we were doing fantastic in the summer. Remember, we were all getting ready without our masks, going to Lollapalooza until the Delta variant hit. And the 39 million morons who refuse to get vaccinated are the reason why we're not out of this pandemic. It's got nothing to do with base Biden and his mandates. I hope to God the Supreme Court holds them up.
Okay, it is now open dialogue.
The hype is so fake. Destiny and IRI, nobody believes you guys that you're actually excited about Biden. That's so fake.
You know what?
Wait, how could you possibly say that? I don't
It's
think anybody
obvious.
thought that he could have gotten as much done in
It's
his
obvious.
first. I was starting to believe the anti-hype from you guys that we weren't going to get the infrastructure bill passed. But
Infrastructure bill is nothing. Like the Congress passes blowout spending packages all the time.
You
and
say
this is
blow- you
causing
say it's
massive.
nothing,
Hold
but
on,
it
let me
was- wait,
finish,
wait,
Destiny.
wait.
You got mad at me for
You're
not letting you
lying.
finish, and now here you are interrupting me again.
Weasley little
Like,
lion.
let me at least finish.
Still
Like,
lying.
I let you finish. No, but you're saying, oh, this is so great. He got these 2 blowout spending packages done. But guess what? That deficit and that debt is causing inflation, which hurting low-income people the most. Why don't you care about low-income people who are getting killed right now by inflation?
Oh, yeah, God, yeah.
In terms of causing inflation, so the cause of inflation is complicated. To say that it's just because of spending is just not true.
I didn't
If
say
it
it's
was-
just
if it
because
wa-
of spending.
Oh, well, what do you think are the primary drivers for inflation right now?
The deficit and the debt are a huge impact on it. It's not the only thing, though.
What do
you
you think
mean?
they're the largest impact, or
It's a major impact.
it's
The Fed-
getting smaller every time I ask? Okay.
No, it's been. Are you,
You mean
serious?
$8 trillion?
Dustin, are you seriously? You're seriously taking the position that federal deficit spending doesn't cause inflation? Are you serious?
This has been
why?
like the dragon that conservative. I don't even want to say economists because I don't think.
Okay,
even
so no,
conservative
you're not
contemplate
taking
this.
that position.
If that was the case, then I think we would have been worried about spending under Trump. We'd been worried about spending under Bush, but we're never worried about spending under Republican presidents. Only when Democratic presidents come in and they have to bail out the entire fucking country from the absolute unmitigated disaster that the Republican president left before them. So whether it was Obama coming back in through the housing crisis, or whether it was Biden coming back in through whatever the fuck Trump left the country with, right? Now all of a sudden we're worried about the spending, right? And any extra Middle Eastern country that we want to get into war with, the spending doesn't matter. Or in any other pet project, massive corporate tax cut that Republicans want to do, the spending doesn't matter. But as soon as it comes time to spending money on those same working class people that you claim to care about, now all of a sudden it's a huge fucking problem.
I've got videos in 2016 complaining about it.
Oh my God, he didn't let me finish. He
I've got videos
didn't let
in
me finish. And I was
2016.
so close. Oh, I was so close. He didn't let me finish. Can I? Okay. Great. So the main driver of inflation seems to be the fact that a lot of services are closed right now. It's really hard to spend money on services. A lot of the money that we're spending right now is disproportionately being spent on goods. And goods can only be shipped in so many allotted quantities, and that seems to be the big driver of inflation. But A lot of people keep saying everything is horrible, everything is bad, but guess what? As the supply chains adapt, all of these prices are slowly coming back down again. People were worried about lumber, and in like 6 months it came back down. People are worried about other goods, it's slowly coming back down. Yeah, there's going to be bumps. Yeah, there's going to be hiccups. It's an unmitigated, unprecedented disaster in terms of the shift in spending around the world, but we're recovering. We're making it because capitalism is a great system, my friend. The supply chains will adapt and evolve. It's happened in the past, and it'll continue to happen under the glorious future. God Emperor Joe Biden.
I want to address something
Obvious
that
troll.
IRI said earlier. So
Cam?
you said the 39 million Americans that still haven't been vaccinated. You blamed something on them. I forget what it was, but let's not forget
The
that
pandemic.
let's not forget that it was literally this administration, the members of this administration, that were sowing distrust in the vaccine last year. Let's not forget that. Kamala Harris.
You're talking about
literally
Kamala
said-
Harris's comments. She wouldn't believe it if she heard it from
Harris,
Trump. she
Biden,
said.
Cuomo, and sure, Cuomo's gone now. Sure, Cuomo literally said that he doesn't trust the federal government. He won't recommend that New Yorkers get the Trump vaccine. Kamala Harris said
I
she
wouldn't
won't
trust
get the
Trump
vaccine.
either.
Okay, well, they're weird because
Who
they're
the hell would
actually-
trust Trump? I wouldn't trust Trump with
Wait,
anything,
shh,
dude.
shh, for a second. It's
You got
kind of
the
weird.
vax.
It's kind of weird that they're actually I am vaccinated. It's kind of weird that they're actually distributing the vaccine that was developed during the time of his administration right now. The same
Yeah.
one that they were saying they didn't trust before
You
they
think
entered
Trump
office.
was in the
Isn't that
lab
kinda
with a
weird?
little beaker and a lab coat
Well,
on? I don't
Trump-
trust what that guy says. I trust the
because-
CDC and the FDA.
apparently-
Why did
you
Kamala
lost
Harris
so
then
much-
say she wouldn't?
Okay, weird. You trust the CDC, right? Because
She said she
Are you
wouldn't
kidding?
trust it if she heard it from Trump.
Wait, IRI, you would trust the CDC for medical information, but you wouldn't trust President Trump? Wow, that's
You don't
pretty
think they're
silly,
the
my dude.
same
Wait,
thing?
Call me crazy. Call me crazy.
Okay, wait,
dude.
Cam, hold on. No, Cam, I love this talking point. I'm so curious, okay? So we talk about how Democrats sow distrust in the vaccine, okay? Are you telling me with a straight face right now? Because if we look at who's unvaccinated, right? We can look at the difference between like Republican and Democrat. We can see who's not getting vaccinated. Are you telling me that the only
Sure.
time Republicans wanted to listen to a black woman in their life was when Kamala Harris was telling them not to trust the vaccine?
No,
What does
I'm
that
telling
talking point even mean?
Not that
telling
black.
you, okay, so if Trump were to have been reelected, do you not think that rhetoric would have continued if it wasn't the Biden administration that took over and had the responsibility of distributing the vaccine? How
I
you
do not
things
think
would
the
have been-
First of all, you're asking for like a counterfactual that
You-
I can never prove this, but no, I don't think the Democrats would have suddenly become anti-vax the same way the Republicans don't believe in fucking climate change. I don't think the Democrats will flip on those types of positions that hardcore,
Okay.
like Republicans seem to sometimes.
Well, they did flip really hardcore on it because as soon as they took office, they started pushing the vaccine and distributing it just like they're supposed
I
to.
think it was
Prior
it
to
was
that,
after
they
the-
were
it was after the
saying that
trials.
They wouldn't get it.
It was
Andrew
after the
Cuomo-
FDA
Wait,
trials.
okay,
Andrew
one second.
Cuomo-
Stop.
CDC trials,
Stop.
right?
Okay, one second. We need one person to talk at a time because you can't like we're talking over each other. Okay, we're gonna have Destiny talk, then we're gonna have Cam respond. Okay, Destiny.
Well, sure. The trust in the vaccines came once the trials were done and the CDC was approving them, or emergency use authorization approving them, and they were going through. And even in the prior comments we looked at, we can go look at the comments that I think Biden and Kamala Harris made comments before. It was something along the lines of like, "We'll trust the process. I'm not going to trust anything Trump says, but we'll see what like the process is or whatever." And we follow the process, and the process, has resolved itself. We have vaccines.
No, the rhetoric from these people was literally, "I'm not getting it if it comes out under the Trump administration. We don't trust the federal
No.
government right now." Yes, it was.
You're wrong.
Yes, it was. Andrew,
You're wrong.
Cuomo
She didn't say anything
literally,
about the
"Don't
federal
trust-
government.
Don't trust the federal
Said
government,
Donald
and I
Trump.
will not recommend to
Google
New
it.
Yorkers that they get the vaccine." Kamala Harris, Joe Biden said, "I trust scientists, I trust vaccines, but I don't trust Donald Trump, and neither can the American people right now."
Nobody should
Obviously,
trust
if you
him.
don't- If you don't think that's an
You should.
illusion to people not to trust the Trump vaccine, then you're insane. And I don't think I think you're just making a non-argument right now.
She said, I will say that I would not trust Donald Trump.
If he tells me
As
to
a
get it,
credible
I'm not
source.
getting it. If he tells me to
I
get
wouldn't
it,
trust
I'm
that
not
guy
getting
with
it.
anything. If he told me I'm standing in front of you, I'd be like,
Okay,
dude, I don't even
wait,
believe you right
wait,
now.
finish
I
that
was
quote.
You don't love
gaslighting.
truth.
Wait.
Finish that quote. I will say-
Wait. Okay. So let's stop for a second. Destiny, you wanted him to finish the quote.
Yeah, finish the quote. I will say that I would not trust Donald Trump, and it would have to be a credible source of information that talks about the efficacy and the reliability of whatever he's talking about, like the CDC. or
Who
the
said
FDA.
that? And who said that?
Kamala Harris.
Okay, Kamala Harris also said, "If Donald Trump tells me to get it, I'm not getting it." And the overall rhetoric was literally, "I don't trust the federal government. I'm not getting the vaccine under the Trump
You're
administration."
drawing that conclusion.
don't-
You're drawing that conclusion,
Plus, he's not the
Cam. She
entire
didn't say
federal
that.
Government, nor
Okay,
is he the
okay.
CDC.
She didn't say any of
Okay.
that.
Okay, I don't trust the federal government. Doesn't include the CDC now. Apparently, the CDC is not a
She didn't say I don't
bureaucracy within
trust the federal government.
Federal
She didn't
government.
say anything about that.
Clear. I literally said when I started this point that I was talking about Democrats, not just specifically Biden, not specifically just Kamala Harris, Democrats in general.
Oh, you're moving them goalposts. They got some wheels on them. They're out in the parking lot
This
at
is how
this
I
point.
premised my
This phase.
argument. Roll it back. This is how I premised my argument, and I did it very carefully. Like, I'm
sure about that?
The goalpost. I am absolutely sure. Roll them back.
Okay.
Man, we got a President Mike Pence. Yeah, we're gonna go to shift.
Okay, so, whew, that was a great game of football. You're wrong about the Democrats and the left and vaccines. You're just wrong, and I'm gonna explain it to you because I spent 32 hours of my life sitting here looking through footage and quotes and everything, even though it was already said. The general messaging was that so much crap was coming out of Trump's mouth, and there were so many different people between Fauci and Birx, and I still can't believe we let Stella Emanuel. I'm never letting Republicans get away with that. Y'all really had Demon Sperm Lady up there talking about some bullshit. Anyway, like, yo, the idea was that if an administration that could push all these random ass cures, just like snake oil, would then want to push out a vaccine, I don't trust it. I don't have faith in you because you literally went out of your way to say, a chloroquine and this and ivermectin and all that bullshit. Y'all just dumb. Oh my God. That's not, you're wrong. You're just wrong.
It's not an argument.
Yeah, you're just wrong is not an argument.
Okay,
Let's
so
get very
I
clear.
mean, when I say this, okay, I'll tell you what. Since you don't know me, I'm gonna say this real quick. When I tell somebody that they're wrong, it's not because like I disagree with you. It's like whatever the fuck you're talking about is in the realm of like, you're over there, bro. Like that wasn't you say Democrats, you say the left. And I'm really looking out like, I talk to Democrats, I
Because
talk
I'm
to the
talking
left,
about people
I'm
who are
in the cities,
Democrats
I'm interviewing
political
people.
office.
None of these people are saying that.
I do
None
the
of
same
these.
thing. I do the same thing. Look, Bo,
So
you're
then
just
how are you talking about this in a way that makes any viable sense?
You're
Oh, the
just-
Democrats and the left were doing this. Like, no. Anyway, on to my next point. On to it because I gotta
I
respond.
don't have one.
Inflation is at the highest level it's ever been at. That is correct. But if you look at the inflation rates for the last 10 years, not only have we bumped this ceiling before, but we've done it by spending on tax cuts and military and shit, no infrastructure, literally nothing for the American people. It was a cycle through Wall Street. You can look that up from 2013 to 2018. We've had this inflation before. We will recover. The last thing I'm gonna say is, damn, Destiny, that speech really hit, yo. Like, I'm on the Biden train. I really didn't put this in perspective, but like Obama 2008 financial crisis, like now Joe Biden financial crisis as we're looking at Trump throwing everything and everybody's bailing out of defense stocks and y'all probably don't know about that, sorry, PCE prices. I didn't realize how much Biden has been able to accomplish, even though nobody wants him to accomplish anything. We look at his accomplishments as they've got to be big, and I get that now. By listening to this, listening to everybody talk, I get that. We're supposed to look at Biden as like universal healthcare, like we're supposed to like the big things. These small little steps may not feel like a lot to us, but they are to a lot of people. And those are the people that matter.
Infrastructure is a communist buzzword, and Trump had the economy going until the communist shutdowns by the local governments, which were not necessary. It was playing mama, pretending to protect the people from the virus. It was fake.
Okay, so why did Trump have a
Wait,
$2
what
trillion
part was fake?
budget? Why did Trump have a $2 trillion infrastructure proposal then that he tried to get up until even May of 2020? If it's just some communist buzzword nonsense.
Because it's a reality that we're stuck with.
So is Trump a
Wait,
communist?
why is there?
No,
I'm
because it's
just-
a
I'm just
reality that we're stuck with.
Wait, stop. One at a time. I would like IRS question to, be able to be answered if possible. I would like to hear Hake respond. We don't want to talk over him.
Sure. I'd like to hear it too.
It's a reality that we're stuck with. They've set the system up so that people are dependent on the feds to to do all of this stuff. But so much of this infrastructure stuff is not spent on like roads and bridges, as we all know. It's spent on like liberal values. It's a whole lot of fakeness.
But Trump had $800 billion even more that he wanted to spend money on.
Even
Is
more,
that
but
all?
Yeah, go ahead.
So even worse liberal stuff that Trump wanted?
I doubt it, because Trump was not
doubt
so
it?
subversive.
Oh.
He was not so
Well, what was
subversive.
Trump's just patriot projects or what?
Definitely. Trump was for the country.
Okay.
Biden is for subverting
it.
the country. He's not an honest person. Trump was hated because he's told the truth. Biden
I
is loved because he's a liar.
Isn't
I have a
infrastructure a good
question for Hank.
opportunity to like make
Liar.
friends, not enemies? Shouldn't this be something we all kind of come together on? Like, I don't understand how you can not be in favor of infrastructure. It just like, is there a part of the bill? Was there some amount of like finance like allocated? You're like, we shouldn't spend money on that, or this just seems like such a no-brainer thing that everybody should be in favor of.
Well, it's because these are dishonest people. You
Wait,
can't
the
trust
people
them
that are
to
saying
spend
we
the money
need our
wisely.
bridges and roads to function well, or what part of
But
the
that's
people?
not infrastructure.
Who do
Is
we
not
trust,
just bridges
then?
and roads. When you look into
do you
the nitty gritty of what they're doing, it's not just bridges and roads. You know that.
Hey,
Yeah,
who
I
do you
mean,
trust?
you
in
can
the
break
government?
apart the
Hold on,
budget.
when I
You
have
can
one
see,
second,
like-
okay, 1 second. One at a
Sorry, go
time.
ahead.
It's IRI and Destiny. So we're gonna have Destiny talk to Hake first, then we'll have IRI, and then we're gonna go to Merrick.
Go, Ira. You can go first.
I just want to know, hey, can you give me like 2 names of people in government that you trust? Who should we trust?
They've been ousted from government. Donald Trump and Steve King, Congressman Steve King of Iowa.
The Iowa guy.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Got it.
Honorable men.
That
We
was
love
the
them.
guy that
Honorable.
said. That was the guy that talked
You're-
about what was it, Mexican babies or something? What?
Yeah, the Republicans kicked him off his
The white
committees.
nationalist.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
the Republicans are not representative of the American people. They're traitors to the American people, by and large.
It's you versus the world, huh?
Pretty much.
You got it all figured out, huh, Hake?
Pretty much.
Hey, Destiny, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, wait. When you said earlier that the coronavirus was fake, what part of it was fake?
I didn't say the coronavirus was fake. I said that the phoniness over the shutdowns. I don't believe that the shutdowns were necessary, and a lot of quote unquote experts agree with me that these shutdowns were not necessary.
Hey, Hank. I
Okay,
don't
wait.
think I'm talking
Why
to
is
you
it that when
direct-
you're quoting the experts to help you, why would you say quote unquote?
Because I put common sense before experts.
Hey,
Or sorry. Am I
Hey,
interrupting?
Hank. Can I ask you a question? Since
Yes.
you just mentioned it, you don't believe that the shutdowns did anything to really help, or you're saying that there are experts who are in a large field who believe that the shutdowns didn't help. Can you please explain to me what shutdowns we had in this country?
We had a lot of people, businesses forced to close around.
No, that's not a shutdown.
Yes, it is. It's a shutdown. The heck?
No, it's not.
Yes,
If
it
those
is.
businesses are allowed to operate in any other way, whether it be online or not, it's still not a shutdown.
It is a shutdown. You're just changing the words.
Shutdown.
It's obviously a shutdown, and the shutdowns did a lot of harm. It's undeniable.
You're talking
And I
about
argue
Trump's
that-
14
Hake is
days.
right on this one. Hake
You're
is
talking
right on
about
this
Trump's
one.
14 days to stop the spread, right?
Right. 14
Yeah,
days.
I
is not
wasn't a
spread.
fan of that either.
Okay. I got it.
15 days. 15 days to stop the spread.
Trump
15,
did a
yeah.
lot of bad things, it sounds like, according to you.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he had the whole government against him, and he had a lot of bad advice and whatever. But he had the best interests of America at heart.
I gotta ask you.
Then
Okay,
Destiny,
because
it
Trump
has to be
came
Merrick.
in.
Merrick's been waiting for a while, okay? Right after you're finished.
Yeah, Trump came in as a business deal making guy. That was his whole point. Okay. Now you might think that the Republicans have a different agenda than him or whatever, but he was a Republican president. The Republican lawmakers largely backed him, at least publicly. If he can't get a government to work for him when he owns every single corner of that government, what the fuck kind of worthless fuck businessman is he? How is he supposed to do anything?
Well, you well know that his own executive branch had a lot of people in it who were working against him. He can't just fire all the Obama
Actually,
holdovers
yeah,
and-
in the executive branch, he absolutely can, and he did. He did it with the FBI. He did it
I
with
don't
the
Not
DOJ.
career bureaucrats.
I don't think
Not
that's true,
career
man.
bureaucrats. You cannot. The president
Yeah.
cannot unilaterally fire career bureaucrats.
Hold
Can't
on, I'm
happen.
sorry. Am I okay? Ira,
There's
am I incorrect?
political
Can't-
appointees.
yeah, for the head of the FDA, the head of the CDC, the head of the FBI, aren't these all political appointees that are done at the will, the behest of the executive branch of the president
Yeah,
himself?
the-
Can he not remove or appoint new
The
people
head,
here?
yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can appoint the head. That's one person, and then you've got like 200,000 people beneath him that actually do everything. That we're literally fighting tooth and nail and slow rolling everything. This is well known.
If you're the CEO of a business, do you think you can use that excuse when you're leading your company? I thought Trump was all about taking responsibility and the buck stops here. Even for my small business, if one of my employees were to do something that represents me in a bad light, I can't just run around and be like, oh, like I didn't mean for that to happen, right? You have to take responsibility for what happens.
No, you should.
So why is Trump allowed to pass the buck here when he marketed himself as a businessman?
Trump's not passing the buck. I'm passing the buck for Trump. I haven't heard Trump really make these excuses.
No, but this is something that even leftists should be very, very concerned about, because what we found out during the Trump administration is that when the duly elected president, as a representative of the American people, wants to get something done and says to do something, and then the administrative state, the career bureaucrats, the people that are actually manning all of these agencies, when they stop them, that's undemocratic. You were so concerned about undemocratic stuff. Well, how about unelected bureaucrats slow rolling and stopping and rejecting and not implementing what the president or his political appointees say to do? That is undemocratic.
Thank you for explaining why you think Biden. Sorry, thank you for explaining why you think Biden can't get anything done. Thank you for explaining that.
See, why do you think
because they're all on his side?
Why do you
they're
think
on his side of the
Democratic only
establishment?
means elected like directly? That's not how our system works. Why do you keep saying that? Democratic doesn't mean that we personally vote on every single policy, on every single administrator, on every single bureaucrat. That's not how our system is set up.
There's
I don't
more
think any
than just
Democratic
direct
They're
system
supposed to
doesn't run that
support
way.
the president.
Okay, wait. Okay, so Merrick still hasn't spoken, and if I don't let Merrick speak, then I'm gonna get canceled. So Merrick.
Just shut up, Dylan. I guess you said that infrastructure is a communist buzzword. So I guess this is kind of a two-parter. Do you think that social spending of any kind is communist? And can you define communism?
Communism is lies to control the people through hatred and spoiling them.
True.
And social
Is
spending
that what Karl
generally.
Marx wrote?
Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt.
Okay.
And generally, a lot of the social spending is not necessary and it's harmful.
No, but is it communist? For any
Yes,
social
yes.
spending, is that communist? Okay.
Generally,
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
you're welcome.
So I'm curious, do you guys believe that it's just a total waste of time to vote in any election? Is it just because it sounds like you always have an excuse for when it's funny because the only other people I hear cry about it this much are progressives. No offense to progressives, but like it sounds like you guys always have an excuse for why you can't get anything done. Like there's either going to be a bureaucrat standing in your way, there's going to be some court standing in your way. Like Donald Trump was the president. You would both have.
He got a lot done, and he got
What do
more
you mean
than
he got
Biden.
a lot done. They couldn't even repeal the fucking ACA, which was like their main hatred point of Obama for like 7 fucking years.
Actually, they did repeal the worst part about it, which was the individual mandate. That's gone.
The big call was, you can cope all you want, but the big call was repeal and replace. And all of us heard that gasp in the room when McCain said no for shooting down the fucking repeal and replace on that.
Right,
You
so
can
there's your
pretend like
answer.
that was a
So there's your
victory,
answer.
okay?
So there's your
and
answer.
also,
John
for
McCain. It was John
for major
McCain.
legislative accomplishments, the only thing we really got under Trump were the tax cuts, which contributed to the very same debt and spending that you seem to hate so much. So how can you possibly say that Trump got a whole bunch of shit done? Like what
He got rid of a lot of regulations.
We got rid of regulations.
wow.
Okay,
Trump was
1.5
helpful.
trillion added to the debt. 1.5 trillion from the 2017
Actually,
Tax
no,
Cuts and
actually,
Jobs Act.
That's
8
not true.
trillion added in the last 4 years under the Trump administration. Where were you complaining the last couple of years when they added $8 trillion
I
to
think
our
almost
debt?
Double, right?
I've
Okay,
got
wait,
videos.
one second.
I've got
Okay,
videos
one
on
at a
YouTube
time.
from
So, wait,
2016,
one second.
2017.
Okay, so we're gonna have lecture fan. We're gonna have Cam, then Hake, because I've heard all of them want to talk here. So I want to make sure they all get time to talk. And TJump hasn't talked in a while. Did you want to talk at some point? Okay, so lecture fan.
No, okay, so just so you guys know, I have been criticizing the spending and the deficits this entire time. So you guys keep saying, nobody criticized it during Trump. Yeah, lots of people did. And we've got videos to prove it from 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. And the reason that Trump didn't have more legislative accomplishments is because Democrats controlled Congress and the House the second 2 years, and then Paul Ryan was the Speaker of the House, and they did get the tax cuts, which is major accomplishments. And then Trump actually, with what he could do with the executive power, he did way more in terms of foreign policy and cutting regulations and things like that than Biden has. Everything
what do you
Biden's done
define
gets thrown
success? What do you define as success for the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act? They were supposed to have like 6% GDP the next 2 years. It's still at 2%. What was the success?
Well, because did you realize that we had COVID and that impacted GDP? But
These are the 2 years
here's the
before. We're
success.
talking
Here's the success.
2018, 2019.
Here's-
2
here's
years
the
before the
success.
pandemic, buddy.
Here's
Where
the-
is the success, Lecture?
No, okay, the success is that people are paying less. 80% of Americans paid less in taxes. And if you actually look at the actual
Doesn't
tax
matter.
revenue,
It's
we
about
have more tax revenue. Hold on, let me
GDP, brother.
finish it.
GDP,
No,
brother.
It does.
Yeah, we
It does
gotta let-
matter. What
gotta let him finish.
individuals are actually paying in taxes actually does matter. I know you don't care about people and how much they have to pay in taxes, but it does matter. And 80% of Americans having more money in their pockets actually does matter. Maybe Democrats could actually do a little bit better in elections if they actually cared about people's pocketbook issues. And so that was a huge accomplishment. There's more federal tax revenues after the tax cuts than there were before. And studies have shown that if you actually look at tax revenues as a percentage of GDP, they've been very steady over time. What's not been steady over time is federal spending. All of our deficits and debt is due to out of control spending on welfare programs and entitlement programs. And that's a fact. And you guys want to keep pushing down this insane route. Good luck in 2022, boys.
What's the difference between giving people money back in terms of tax cuts versus giving people money back in terms of entitlements? Why one of these so important and the other isn't?
There's a massive difference. Number one, when people work and earn their own money, that's their own money. Having to pay it to the government to then run it through administrative costs and then unequally and unfairly dole it out to special interest groups, that's not cool.
Okay, so I obviously have no authority here, but can we like talk about Biden, because like this whole Trump thing is like exhausting. We've heard all the arguments, we've gone over it time and time
It
again.
always
It's
turns into
old.
that. You're right.
I think it came from this general area down here, and it's really just a derail, and it gets everybody riled up, and then it turns into a Trump conversation.
Cam, you are
Yep,
next on the
amen,
list.
brother.
So, Cam,
Amen.
you're-
Democrats have
Lecture
nothing,
fan.
so they just want to trash Trump.
Okay. So, Cam,
TDS.
I want to.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh,
I want to
okay.
hear what other people.
Can people not hear me? Is my mic not working? Okay.
No, I'm sorry. That was my
Okay.
fault.
Thank you. So Cam, you're next, so you can bring the conversation back to Biden if you want.
Okay, sure. So I guess I like listening to what people have to say and responding to it, I guess, more. So how about can we talk about like Afghanistan or something, or like his handling of the pandemic?
do it.
Anybody, I don't care.
Whatever you want to talk about, Cam. I'm happy to chat with you, buddy.
Go ahead, sure.
Afghanistan, we're finally out. Amen, brothers.
What's
It's
the-
happening.
yeah.
We finally did it.
So
Like 20
what-
years later.
So what you guys
First
think?
Veterans Day and
handling-
not in an active war in 20 years. Thank you,
think
Biden.
That's
you think the
disgusting that you
handling
could
of that
celebrate
situation
that.
was good? You think the hand?
I think he
everyone
did.
thinks
I think it
that
was
You know,
terrible.
I think that
definitely-
we look at. I think that sometimes we look at things like a movie where we want there to be like some ideal solution where there's absolutely no downsides. I don't think there was ever no downsides to that. I guess just for like, let me just rattle off like for 10 seconds. There's so many stupid talking words coming out. So for all of the people that are like, oh, well, we should have slowly drawn down troops or whatever, that wasn't an option because it's obviously undermining the presence of the ANI there. It's obviously making it look like we have a vote of no confidence in the country. We can't slowly start visaing and taking every single important asset out of the country. That's a stupid suggestion. It undermines everything we've done there. We can't do that. Number one. Number two, the idea that we left military equipment there for the people, for the Taliban to take over when we left, that's also not true. We sabotaged a lot of that equipment on the way out. And we weren't just going to leave and pull out every single piece of military equipment that we had there also, because again, it undermines the ANI. And as soon as we leave and then the Taliban rolls through in 3 days, everybody's gonna be looking at the US like, oh my God, why'd you take all your military equipment? That was so horrible. You destroyed their ability to fight back, right? Yeah. 3, were there some Americans left behind? Sure, there were. I think I want to say now the number is less than 100. Obviously, there are going to be people scattered throughout, people that can't get out. There's never going to be like a perfect 100%, like we're out, there's no blood on our hands, everything is fine. But in terms of respecting the agreement that we already had in place from the Doha talks, I think, that we already had in place with the Taliban to be out of the country by a certain point in time, to make sure that no more American lives were lost in terms of aggression by the Taliban themselves, which even the Taliban understood, and to make sure that we weren't stuck in a protracted conflict that lasted another 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years because we don't have the perfect opportunity to withdraw. I think it's not only cool that we actually got out, but it's cool that Biden was willing to take the small PR hit to finally remove us from that conflict, knowing that there was going to be a little bit of smudge on his face while he left.
Okay.
Way too
Trump
much.
would've handled it better.
Okay, give me a second. Okay, Hake was the next one to speak, so I want to give it over to him.
Trump would have handled the Afghanistan withdrawal better. I think we all know this. Republicans have not liked this spending stuff. Even since George W. Bush, they didn't even like the Republican voters I'm talking about, like the Tea Party. Obama was spending like crazy, which gave birth to the Tea Party, but they were not fans of Republicans spending like
I
crazy.
thought we were talking about Biden here.
I know, but I'm leading up. You criticized Republicans as though they only get mad when Democrats are spending and not when Republicans are spending. Trump had to spend more in response to Obama drawing down the military. He decimated the military, so he had to build up the military. So we cut him some slack on the spending. but Biden is not spending on good stuff. He spent like 130 billion or something to supposedly open up the schools, and a lot of that is being spent on the critical race theory nonsense. So it's corrupt.
All right, so let's talk about the Doha.
And then after
agreement.
I almost called him J-Trump. J-Jump. No, T-Jump. After him.
So Destiny said that we had to respect the Doha agreement, which sure, I agree. We did have to respect the Doha agreement. But there's two parts to that story, right? It wasn't just us that had to respect it. It was also the Taliban for that plan to be followed through, right? If we're talking about the same Doha agreement between the U.S. government and the
what was
Taliban.
the Taliban's part of that?
Yeah, what was their end of the deal there, Cam? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. Actually, here, I could pull up the whole agreement. But
well, no, there was a huge important part of that deal. There was a massive
I mean, you asked me a
component.
question. Can I answer?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so first, let me see. Part one was what? So there'd be part four. I remember that one off the top of my head was obviously the intra-Afghan negotiations, which I think also took place in Doha. There would be the Taliban also. Part one was that they couldn't, and I'm just listing them as I remember. The Taliban couldn't use Afghan soil to host enemies of the U.S., right? Like Al Qaeda, ISIS, ISIS-K. There was I forget what the two in the middle were.
That was
if
the
you
big
tell
one.
me,
That was the huge one.
what was the one in the middle? What was the number two?
The one that you mentioned about them not using Afghanistan soil to host groups that are hostile to the United States.
Right.
That was the big one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Remember what the punishment was if they didn't go through with this stuff? Do you remember that?
What was it?
It was nothing. It was jack squat. That's what it was.
Right. But the entire
great deal.
The entire agreement, the entire drawdown of forces was contingent on the Taliban holding up to this deal. Literally,
and they didn't.
And they didn't. Exactly.
And there was no punitive measures. And we counted on a 300,000 strong.
Wait, listen. Under the Trump administration, largely, and I'm sorry, I'm calling back the Trump administration, but I mean, I could pull up graphs. Obviously, you're not going to be able to see them. I could send them in chat, I guess. The violence on all sides was extremely low, right? Because one of the de facto parts of this agreement was that all violence on all sides would drop by 80%, right? This was vocalized by the Taliban.
Who do you think committed the violence against our
US.
soldiers at the airport? Who do you think committed the violence against our soldiers?
It
was the
obviously.
Taliban?
No, I don't
it was
think
ISIS.
that it was.
It wasn't Taliban.
You're just straw manning me, just like you did with everybody else.
So what violence are you talking about? What violence happened when Biden took over?
Well, for one, the Taliban started attacking towns and gaining massive ground, obviously breaking the agreement. When I say violence on all sides, I'm talking about Taliban violence against coalition forces, Taliban violence against the Afghan security force, Afghan violence against the Taliban, violence, military violence of any kind. It was very, very, very low until Biden took over, and the Taliban apparently got it in their head that they now had the green light to start taking as much land as they possibly could. And in a very short period of time, they took 70% of the country. Biden pulled everybody out, didn't have any evacuation plan whatsoever. In Destiny, sure, we did sabotage a lot of the equipment, sure. But the Taliban undeniably did use our Humvees, our guns, and a bunch of other equipment, and our military drones to take territory. Like there's literally videos and pictures of them driving around in our Humvees and using the 50 cals on top to take villages and to take territory. It's undeniable. Sure, it's good that we sabotage some of it, but
yeah, there wasn't a deal. My understanding is it wasn't a deal that the Taliban were going to split the country with the ANI and just leave, or that they were going to leave everything up.
That was a hope. That was a hope, but it wasn't.
Sure.
It wasn't particularly
it might have been a
in
hope,
the agreement.
But
no, right. You're right.
What was the alternative then? Do we just stay forever? This is the problem that we get into.
No,
Trump had us going out, and it would have gone smoother.
A good start would be an evacuation plan for, at the bare minimum, U.S. citizens in Afghanistan. As the Taliban are rapidly gaining ground, a good evacuation plan to get our people out before they just start slaughtering people, which they did, by the way, with our biometric databases. They went door to door testing people's irises to see if they were U.S. citizens or U.S. allies, and then literally hanging them or beheading them because we left our databases there. Or the devices that had the databases.
How many American citizens were slaughtered by the Taliban when we left?
I don't have an exact number. I mean, are you contesting that U.S. citizens were killed by the Taliban after we left?
I know that there were people that worked with the U.S. that were killed. I don't remember there being a wholesale slaughter of American citizens.
I didn't say a wholesale slaughter.
There was at least two. There was at least two really good alternatives in Afghanistan, other than the complete and utter disaster, one of the greatest American foreign policy disasters in a generation that was the Afghanistan pullout. But really, Afghanistan is just one of a whole other symptoms of the weak foreign policy. And Biden is so incredibly weak. His foreign policy is so horrible. You've got Russia on the move. You've got China on the move. Both Russia and China are our two main adversaries, both getting super aggressive with Ukraine and Taiwan. And it's a very dangerous situation because Biden is weak, and that's what happened. So there was two different alternatives in Afghanistan. Number one is you leave about 2,000 American troops there in a non-combat role, and you continue to provide air support, and you could have prevented this disaster where the Taliban are now taking over and killing women and raping kids and all this horrible stuff that you guys don't seem to care about.
No,
The second alternative was to actually when the Taliban broke the agreement and started doing all these horrible things, you then say, okay, we're not withdrawing. We're going to keep 2,000 troops here, and we're going to bomb you guys until you do it. And then they say, okay, fine, we won't do that. And if Trump had been there and Trump was strong, like he always had been on foreign policy, then the Taliban wouldn't have done that. We could have withdrawn, and the government wouldn't have fallen like that. The whole reason they were so surprised by the government falling is because it wouldn't have fallen if Trump was president, but with Biden president, it was because he's weak and he sucks, and Democrat foreign policy always sucks, and it makes the world more dangerous, and now Americans are in a more dangerous situation, and we're much more likely to get hit by a terrorist attack, and Russia and China are much more likely to get aggressive and invade their enemies, and this is all from Biden's weak foreign policy.
I would actually disagree with LCTRfan. I would say instead of leaving 2,000 troops in Afghanistan to deal with the situation, I would say that we should have scaled up forces until we could devise an evacuation plan, which is actually what Biden had to do after, not until after he allowed the Taliban to completely overrun the country and doom a lot of the people that were there.
I
Okay,
thought
firstly,
you guys
the
were
State
against
Department-
unnecessary wars.
Yeah, okay. There was no door-to-door slaughter of U.S. citizens. I'm trying to find this. I don't even think I need to look for this because if this would have happened, we would have been hearing it on the news.
They were going
I
door
can't
to
find
door.
anything about
The
it.
news would never report that.
So,
The news would never report that.
Door
Bro,
to
AP or Reuters they might have went door to door and they might have
news.
killed people that were working
Al
with the
Jazeera would have
US.
reported it.
Yeah, Al Jazeera would have reported it from any country.
They were
and,
looking for anyone who was a U.S.
Okay.
citizen or an ally of the United States, and they
Wait.
were slaughtering people.
Okay,
Okay.
so this didn't happen. Number one. Number two. Okay, any citizen that wanted out has had the opportunity to via the State Department. Okay, those
That is
arrangements
not
have been
true.
made.
That's a Biden talking point.
That is
That's a
my
talking
understanding.
point.
Destiny,
The
that
last
is
I
not
checked,
true.
I think there were like less than 100 American citizens that were still left in Afghanistan.
Destiny, there's literally civilian like ops groups going into Afghanistan still and rescuing people that didn't get out when they wanted to. This isn't something that's hosted by the federal government. These are civilians that are literally most of them are former military going into Afghanistan and rescuing people that didn't get out when they wanted to because they got stranded by the Biden administration.
Okay, I'll go look for those stories. It wouldn't surprise me if there were like a dozen, but like the State Department was issuing evac orders like months before the official evacuation started. Like this was something that the administration knew was going to do. This timeline had been set out by President Trump prior to this for leaving the country. And the idea that like we were gonna like increase troops there, the only reason why there was so little violence and up to us leaving that country is because the Taliban and us had an understanding that we were going to depart. Right? We were going to leave. The idea that we should start drawing troops up there again instead of drawing them down, and the idea that the Taliban wouldn't have responded, like the Taliban gets a ton of support from Pakistan. They're going to have arms. They're not people fighting in caves. We're going to start losing soldiers again. You know what happens? It only takes one or two bad fucking attacks. Oh my God, 100 U.S. soldiers killed and blah, blah, blah. Bam, we've got 20,000 troops again in the Middle East, and we're right back at fucking ground zero once again in fucking Afghanistan for another 2 decades. Why would we do that? And then in terms of like, and I'm only saying this because either you or somebody else brought it up that Trump could have done it better, or Trump would have done it better. Motherfucker, Trump left over 100,000 motherfucking Syrians on the Syrian-Turkish border to let our own fucking allies slaughter. The idea that Trump would have more responsibly moved us out of here when Trump was a coward and he moved that Doha deadline to leaving that country until after he was out of office, and he did that very intentionally, just like he tried to do with some of his tax cuts, where he was going to cut the Social Security payroll taxes, and then he was going to reinstate them during the next administration so that if he wasn't elected again, a Democrat would have to be the one to do it. This absolutely could have been done under Trump if he wanted to, but he didn't do it. He chose not to do it. He extended those deadlines into the next administration, and Biden still came through, and it was still a better situation than what we left the Kurdish people at between Turkey and Syria. So I don't understand this idea of how Trump could have done it better or Biden did a horrible job, and there was no mass slaughter of U.S. citizens from door to door. We all would have been hearing about this on the news, or Al Jazeera or Russia or China were reporting it.
Russia Today, like, yeah.
It was on the news. Okay. Anyway, I think you're misrepresenting my argument a little bit. I don't think you're doing it intentionally. First of all, I didn't say anything about Trump doing it better. I haven't said that. Now, when we talk about like scaling up forces, right? I'm not saying that we should scale up forces and leave them there. I'm saying that we should have scaled up forces and devised an evacuation plan. If you're criticizing the idea of scaling up forces, you're also criticizing Joe Biden, the guy that you're defending, because that's ultimately what he did just before we fully withdrew. He scaled up forces, but he did it too late before he devised an evacuation plan. And we ended up getting stranded at the airport, which ended up being a slaughter. It was a slaughter. Was like 200 Afghan citizens died and 13 U.S. service members, Marines, and naval members, right? So, like, yeah, we should have scaled up forces, but we should have done it a lot sooner. When the Taliban started rapidly taking ground, we should have dealt with the situation, devised an evacuation plan, and got everybody out. I'm not saying that we should not have pulled out of Afghanistan. I'm saying that we should have done it way better. This was terrible, and I'm not saying that Trump could have done a better job. I'm not saying that. I'm saying what Biden did was shit. And it was.
We get it. You want more troops in foreign countries, and you want Trump would have done it better. What else? What other problems you got with Biden? What about 40 judges appointed in his first year?
Wait. Okay. So let's not yell over each other.
No name calling.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over.
Let me just
lecture. Let me just. TJump has been waiting the whole. Okay. He hasn't said anything the whole time.
Oh, okay. All right.
TJump.
I mean, yeah, I think that the bigger problem is that even though I agree that Biden did many of the things Destiny said, I don't think they're that spectacular. I think that's like the bare minimum of what you would expect from like a competent politician, which we don't usually have in this country. So, I mean, I'm not impressed by any of this. I want a politician who's actually going to make a difference and make things better for people, not just do the very bare minimum, which is pretty garbage. So, I mean, I don't know, like all this debate is over, oh, look, he did some very moderate crap and then did some other more bad crap. Oh, good. This is not like a good comparison. You're trying to establish that Biden did a good job. He just did a less shitty job than the previous guy, which wasn't really a high bar. And a lot of the things Destiny mentioned are impacts that happened because of policies that were implemented 10 years ago. So it doesn't necessarily have to do with any of Biden's policies. These are things that have been in the works for a long time, and economic changes that have been in the works for a long time, like trying to get over the supply chain blockages for the wood because of the shipping things that had nothing to do with Biden. Pretty much that was just a time thing. So it's really not most of the things that Destiny mentioned Biden did really didn't have anything to do with Biden. And I don't really know like anything else that's been listed that shows he's done a good job. It's just, oh, look, a mediocre politician doing mediocre politician shit, exactly like pretty much everything has happened. I mean, and comparing him to Trump was garbage. Of course he looks better than Trump. Everybody's better than Trump. So again, I'm not really seeing how this is any relevant to the actual topic of the conversation.
Who do you think would be a good president, TJ? TJump.
Me, I would be a good president. That's the only answer.
Just as a record, the State Department says that right now there are fewer than a dozen U.S. citizens who want to leave Afghanistan, are prepared to depart, and have the necessary travel documents. The idea that there are like hundreds or however many, I don't know.
Oh, you said there was none. You said there was none, Destiny.
I don't think I
said
there were none. I think I said over and over again that there's
that.
probably like less than 100 or a couple dozen. I think I said that over and over again.
I think that's what he said. IRI, I'm sorry that I called you a scumbag. I really just meant that you were being sleazy. I shouldn't have used a name and directed it at you, so I'm sorry.
Can I just point out? Can I just point out the fact that the United States has had troops in Korea?
You're a scumbag. Okay, continue.
Okay, no, the United States has had troops in Korea, Japan, Germany for over 70 years. The United States has troops in over 90 countries, and Afghanistan was important to prevent the Taliban taking over so that they could not be used as a base of operations to commit a terrorist attack against the United States. Second of all, it was very useful to have Bagram Air Force Base to be able to conduct intelligence in Central Asia, including Iran right next door. And so the idea that it's just so outlandish for the United States to have a couple thousand non-combat troops in non-combat roles in a country when we have such significant national security issues at play is just absolutely preposterous. And it's all just because it's so cliche and it's so cool. Oh, forever wars, Middle East. It's like, dude, we've had troops in countries for 70 years. We have troops in over 90. We have 90 countries worldwide where we've got troops and bases. We've got significant national security interests in Afghanistan. They could be plotting terrorist attacks right there. We've totally lost eyes and ears in Iran and other parts of Asia because of this absolute disaster.
Lecture. I think you've been playing a little too much Age of Empires 4, man. A little too much armchair general here. Come on, man. This is real stuff, dude.
That's
this
not
is
an
real
argument.
stuff.
That's not an argument.
Okay, wait. So here,
That's
are you going to criticize then? Are you going to say I condemn Trump for the Doha talks? Can you say that you condemn Trump for giving us that timeline?
Dude, Trump said he wanted to get Afghanistan for 4 years. You know what he didn't do in those 4 years? He didn't get out of Afghanistan. It's one thing to say, I want to get out of Afghanistan.
Dylan, you're going to have to mute me because I'm going to ask this question over and over again until he answers. Are you going to criticize Trump for the Doha talks, for those agreements?
Wait,
Why?
Destiny, were those those talks that Trump wanted to bring the Taliban to Camp David on the anniversary of 9/11? Was it the same group of guys?
Jesus, that's pretty fucking horrible.
That sounds
Wait,
terrible.
didn't Trump was part of
That
those
was
agreements?
one of
Wait,
Trump's
all right, hold
ideas.
on. I didn't read anything about these. All right, didn't he agree to release like some 5,000 fucking ISIS and Taliban prisoners or whatever in exchange for those talks? Did he do that?
No, that's not true.
Yeah.
No,
Really?
Trump, no, it was
Wasn't there a big prisoner? Wasn't there a big prisoner?
5,000 hardened criminals,
wait,
I
stop,
recall.
stop.
It wasn't just, oh, we're going to release them.
Hey, give
But
me-
it was a
Wait,
prisoner exchange
wait.
of some ISIS and Taliban prisoners, wasn't it?
Wait,
Yeah.
stop.
between the Afghan government and the Taliban. It had nothing to do with Trump.
Wait, but wasn't that part of the Doha agreement?
There's two. Okay, so the intra-Afghan talks also happened in Doha. So did the agreement between Trump and the Taliban. They're two completely different things. The intra-Afghan talks between the Taliban and the Afghan government were a contingency of the agreement between Trump and the Taliban. That if they agreed to this, the Taliban would have to talk to the Afghan government in Doha.
So, I mean, the Afghan government that only exists essentially at the behest of the U.S. presence there, right? It's kind of silly to say that these two things were totally independent of one another, no? I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a high level of coordination going on between the Afghan government and the United States government when it comes to organizing these talks, no?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, you could argue that, but it's what the Afghan government wanted. They wanted their people back from the Taliban, and that's what happened. There was a prisoner exchange. It wasn't just this one-sided thing where, oh, we're going to release all the prisoners because Trump made a deal with the Taliban. That's not what happened.
Sure, but it was contingent on the Doha talks that the Afghan government wasn't even privy to, right? I have to look this up. I thought that prisoner exchange was part of the actual Doha agreement itself.
The Afghan government wasn't privy to the agreement between Trump and the Taliban, but the whole Trump agreement with the Taliban was predicated on the idea that the Taliban would go talk to the Afghan government because they didn't want to. So Trump said, we'll draw down forces, we'll do all this other stuff, and you'll do this stuff, but you have to go talk to the Afghan government and come to some kind of compromise. And yeah, that's where the prisoner exchange happened, was in the intra-Afghan talks.
Okay,
And
but
both
part of
sides
the
were released
provisions
to do this.
Sure, okay. These talks seem relatively contingent on one another, right? Without the withdrawal of all the troops, the intra-Afghan negotiation, it's not like a huge point to this. I'm just saying that there was a prisoner exchange, and it was pretty contingent on the U.S. agreements made during the Doha, right?
Sure.
Do you condemn Trump for the guidelines that he had listed out during the Doha talks? Lecture fan.
Oh, okay.
No.
Why not?
Why are you asking?
Why don't you condemn Trump for trying to make us
Because
leave
guess what?
Afghanistan?
Because guess what Trump didn't do? He didn't fuck up Afghanistan like Biden did. He didn't withdraw when there was a disaster unfolding. He didn't give up all of our national security interests. He didn't show complete and total weak. Look,
Wait,
look
hold on,
at
you're just rambling.
Barack Obama totally lost all of the gains we had
Why
in
are we
Iraq.
talking about Obama? How many presidents back do we go?
We're talking about Middle East foreign policy and Central Asia foreign policy, and I'm showing there's an example of this.
Okay, let's look at the example of our Kurdish allies in Syria on the Syrian-Turkey border. What about Trump?
Wait. Okay, lecture fan, you go first, and then we'll have Destiny respond afterward.
Yeah, Destiny just loves talking over me and interrupting me, I guess. The point I'm making about it's amazingly the similarities between Afghanistan and Iraq are similar, because in both situations you had Republican presidents that had created situations where American interests were being protected, and there was security, and there was not a lot of violence, and there was stability going on. And then in Iraq, Obama comes in and, for cliche, just to be cool, partisan sort of political reasons, withdraws from Iraq and gives up everything. Joe Biden, for the same reasons, for literally just to be cool and, I'm hip, let's get cliche, let's end the affair over. Literally, not a lot of thinking going on, just trying to be cliche and hip and cool. Totally destroys it in almost the exact same way, and totally gives up all the gains that Republican presidents had made.
Okay, so why wouldn't you compare this to something more recent, like Trump abandoning our allies, the Kurdish people?
Nice whataboutism. Nice whataboutism.
It can't be real. This can't be a real guy. He breaks. I see you sometimes, LCTRfan. I see you breaking sometimes. I know you are, motherfucker. I'm not getting
real.
into it.
I'm not,
All right,
dude.
I'm
no,
good.
I'm not.
I'm moving.
I'm not
moving
trolling.
past it. I'm not getting
I'm
sucked
not-
into the
Listen,
LCTRfan
we get it.
bubble.
We
not-
won.
I know
I'm
that he's
not
fucking
trolling
trolling.
nearly.
I know he's
No.
fucking trolling me.
You
Look.
know who's trolling is you, saying that you're hyped about Biden. That was the biggest troll I've ever
We
heard
get
in
it.
my life.
We
I
won
hate
on that
reality
point. We can
is-
move on to the next one. It's okay. What about the 40 judges that Biden got confirmed in his first year? Can we talk about that? That's a fun one.
No, before you go to that, we know that we were respected around the world under Trump. Trump had the respect of the people, the globalist foreign leaders. He had them on their toes, and he was able to work with the tough ones too. He got along with the tough ones, which is better than us where we have with Biden. We have Biden who's like barely there, and Kamala Harris also commands no respect. And we have SJW Secretary of State Antony Blinken getting clowned because he's talking about fake human rights when we have fake civil rights drama here in America, and we're getting clowned. We're not respected around the world anymore, thanks to Biden.
I mean, like when we got laughed at the UN when Trump made his speech.
They
okay,
could laugh, but they had to respect him. They had no
so
choice.
even
That's
if you want to
actually
argue that
respect people when
Trump
I'm laughing.
Laughing
It's
is
wait,
irrelevant.
wait, 1 second, 1 second.
Laughing means respect.
I want to see.
Laughing is irrelevant.
Okay, wait.
I
Okay,
respect you so
okay,
much, Hake.
Please, okay, give me a second. Okay, Hake said something and Ira was responding. I wanted that interaction to finish before anybody else jumps in. What were you saying, Ira?
Well, I just recall when Donald Trump made a speech that he thought was serious, and the UN General Assembly was laughing, and I thought, I'm pretty sure he said, didn't know that was funny or something like that. But I guess that's your definition of respect: people laughing in your face.
The UN are not respectable people. They're enemies
Every
of
other
America.
country in the fucking
How-
world.
every
Wait,
other country-
who the fuck respected us then? If
Dude,
not any of the
what
members of the
dimension
UN?
are you from?
They did
What
respect.
dimension
they
are
did
you
respect
from,
him.
Hake?
They had to cave to what he wanted in many
Nobody
ways.
caved.
Okay.
What are you who caved? What the fuck what are we
don't
talking
know.
about? We got no provisions from or concessions from North Korea during those infamous talks. Even I think Pence, I
Yeah.
think, was on record, or not on record,
And-
but behind the scenes was complaining
But it's
about how
unprecedented.
fucked we were, or it might have been
Sure.
Tiller, Rex Tiller was the State Department guy was complaining about it. We got nothing from them. Our China back and forth fucking tariffs were a fucking disaster. We didn't really accomplish anything there.
about
We didn't
that.
bring them to the table on anything. Well, like, where are all these concessions? Where are the people that respect us? Russia didn't give up fucking Crimea. I think they still have a presence in fucking Tiller's on. Still have a presence in Georgia. What happened?
care.
Where's the respect?
We don't care about
you
Crimea.
you can't seriously in good faith argue that Joe Biden commands as much or more respect than Donald Trump, even if you want
he
to say
can't
that
even
Donald
Yes, you can, because if you talk about the
Let me
Mexico-American
finish,
agreement,
Let me finish.
Okay,
Joe
Cam.
Biden literally cannot form an English sentence. He goes to climate
come
summits and actually falls asleep. And this isn't like, okay, he met with the president of Israel and everybody said he falls asleep. Bullshit. It wasn't real. Whatever. He literally fell asleep while world leaders were speaking at the climate summit. You think that commands respect?
You mean the
His
one where
eyes.
it's actually a
He's
TikTok
literally
bullshit
dozing off
rumor?
and an aide had to come wake him up.
yo,
That's not a lie.
Okay.
Those are boring. I'd fall asleep too.
He can't speak. He literally can't
You
talk.
can't
Hold
with
on,
the
was
media.
this
Called
picture?
it the most
wait,
important
okay.
world event.
Wait,
Stop.
this is the picture of him
Stop for a
sitting
second.
like this. You think he was sleeping like this, like a fucking
No,
alligator?
He was like this.
Steven,
Okay, stop.
Dylan is
stop.
trying to talk.
Okay. Thank you. The backup moderation. Okay, so we're gonna go to Shift because he's been waiting for so long. Okay, and I'll let you guys Google away and figure it out in the meantime. Okay, Shift.
yo, first of all, y'all talking a lot, and it's like you're missing the forest for the trees when it comes to the Afghanistan pullout. Like, you really, there is no better way to have done it. I'm gonna be honest with you. You're talking about executing a plan with a clear goal and date, and then executing that plan. And I'm not going to say it like I'm going to say it this way, because I hope nobody takes it this way. But like, I don't care if it was a fucking disaster and like we just lost everything. Like, somebody opened their mouths in the government and did what they said they were going to do. Like, at some point, like, we can get into the specifics of how that withdrawal plan failed. But like, we have somebody who opened their mouths and said, every president before me said, we're not going to go to war. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. Biden, for all his old age and dementia and falling asleep, said he was going to do something and did it. Like, what do you want him to do? Should he have not done it? You said he could have done it better. He could have not done it at all. And now we're at a point where it's like, okay, so this man at least keeps his word when it comes to these high-scale political hits that he could take. If we're talking about if Biden's good or not in his first term, We want him to do more, but he's doing what he said he was going to do. Like, there's no, we're arguing over how good these plans are, but I got more food stamps. Like, he said he was boosting up that program. Like, that happened. We cut child poverty in half. We're giving people money to exist. That was the whole, the liberal plot. It's all going to come crashing down. Prices are going back down. People are making billions. We're seeing record highs in companies. Like, you're arguing over the semantics of whether or not the things that we do are good or not, but they're getting done. The fact is that your former guy and most Republican people in general will say one thing and then do a whole other, and you still praise them for like some ungodly reason when all the logic of what they do is to the same thing that you said the Democrats want with illegal immigrants, is CRT teaching about terrible American value. Like, you just talk and you you act like people are numbers, yo. Like, you act like people don't exist on this fucking planet. I don't know what, like, just like, Biden sucks as like the hype guy. I wish we had somebody older. He fell asleep at a meeting. That shit is boring. Like, I would fall asleep at that if I was fucking president. Like, what do you want a guy to do if we're comparing Biden's record and saying, is he good? Is this worth like our time and attention or Democrat? Hell, like, no. Like, there's so much more that could be done. There's so much easier, like, whatever. But the man is doing what he said he was going to do, whether we hate it or we love it. Like, that's it.
Okay.
Okay, I can't help but. Oh, sorry, Dylan.
We're gonna go. Okay, Destiny, did you find anything on this, or anybody? Did anybody find anything on him sleeping?
I looked it up, and there was a second time, and it looks like he did indeed doze off.
There's a photo.
I will
there's a
take
photo
him.
of him closing his eyes.
I
like
will
this.
say though, I'll take him dozing off over Trump telling us to drink bleach, or that invisible jetpack is
Come
invisible. But he
on,
did.
Destiny. Come
Or
on.
Ivanka sitting in for him.
You can't say that.
Ivanka
without
sat in
laughing.
for him.
He also
Trump
pooped
better. He
himself
didn't
in
even
front
go
of the
to the
Pope.
climate.
Okay.
Stupid thing.
Cam?
Okay,
He did not crap his pants
me?
lecture. Come on. That's
yeah,
so ridiculous.
and he craps his pants.
You
No.
guys are so ridiculous with that talking point.
I will. No, I do want to push though on any of the Republicans here. Who the fuck do you think respected us more under Trump? Because what the fuck? Like, literally every ally shat on us. I don't think any enemies took us seriously. I mean, Kim was happy to get a picture, but like, where the fuck is all this respect under Trump?
What are
Okay,
you
I
talking
just
about?
wanna
Trump
say-
had major successes on foreign policy, particularly in the Middle East.
Like,
I
what?
wanna
He moved,
address
he moved the embassy
Yeah,
from Tel
and then
Aviv
guess
to
what?
Jerusalem,
He
which everybody
literally-
was universally
Stop,
banned by all our allies.
Exactly.
Stop.
Exactly, and then-
wait, stop. I said stop. I can't hear myself think. So, Destiny, say what you were saying, and then we'll have Lecture Fan respond, okay?
The Middle Eastern successes. He bombed Syria again. He bombed an airport in Syria. He moved the embassy east to Jerusalem, which I think was universally panned by every single ally we have. I think everybody criticizes for, except for there was like one other country that might have moved, like Kuwait or I don't remember. What are all these Middle East major
I'll tell you.
successes?
All right. So first of all, Democrats always said that if we moved our embassy in Jerusalem, that would cause all this war and stuff. That turned out to be false. So why should we listen to you now? Second of all, after he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, I don't know if you know this, but there was actually a peace agreement and normalization of relationships between Israel and the UAE and Arab countries. He literally created peace in the Middle East. Oh, what successes? What peace in the Middle East? Ever heard of it?
If we want to talk
And I
about
think
stuff
every-
that
I think every
said they were
president
gonna
promised-
do. Yeah, I was just going to say that. Another thing that every president said they were going to do is move the embassy to Jerusalem, and none of them did it. But I want to talk about something Paradigm said. So I don't know if you noticed this while you were speaking, but you literally said that the withdrawal couldn't have been, there was no better way to do it, and also called it a failure in the same sentence. Did you realize
Yes,
that?
and I explained that. There's no way you heard me talk that long and didn't hear me explain that literal rationale for you in the very next sentence. I don't know why you're hearing me talk and you're not like I don't know if it's going in one ear and out the other, but like I said the explanation for that. It couldn't have been done better because we weren't ever planning to do it, but it was also a failure in the way it was executed. That makes perfect sense.
Okay, Cam.
And I think we had
You're doing the same thing you did earlier. You're saying
Original
you're wrong,
Hake.
no citation, no articulation, nothing. You're wrong. It absolutely could have been done better. I listed one. I said one way that it could have been done better. Nobody contested it, and Lecture Fan also gave 2 ways that he thought it could have been done better, and nobody. Destiny might have contested it. I don't remember, but I don't think there was a lot of contention there.
I did.
We literally could have scaled up forces before we withdrew, which actually happened, but it was too late, devised an evacuation plan, got our citizens, at the very least, out of the country prior to allowing the Taliban to completely take over, and then maybe some of our allies, or hopefully some of our allies. But of course, that didn't happen, and we got a whole clusterfuck at the. Am I allowed to say that? I'm sorry. At the airport there in Kabul.
So a surge. You want another surge? Like, just say that.
What?
Like, just say that.
What? Another surge? What?
Yeah.
What?
You're explaining a surge. Like, you want.
When we send
a
another
surge.
10,000 troops.
That's
to
what Biden did
Afghanistan.
too.
Yeah, Biden sent an additional 5,000 troops. Am I wrong? Was it 5,000? I believe it was 5,000. But it was after he had completely screwed the situation, when he could have brought those troops earlier. And I'm not saying left them in Afghanistan. I'm saying as the Taliban started to rapidly gain ground and territory, it was literally like in a month they went from controlling 15% of the country to 75% just before they seized Kabul, right? We could have drawn up troops, devised an evacuation plan, gotten our people out, and then withdrew. And
Well,
left-
again, that goes to the point Destiny said. Sorry.
Why do we
Okay,
keep saying we
Destiny.
had no evacuation plan? We
did.
We announced this I think in April. The State Department started to say non-essential personnel could leave. Like we had plans for getting people out. It's not like they got a fucking like a DM one day like fly away, lol, like good luck, like.
No, dude, literally as the Taliban were seizing Kabul, American citizens were like told to shelter in place and not leave and not go to the airport to evacuate, right? Like, but if you're told, yeah, you should evacuate, but you don't have any way to evacuate, does that sound like an evacuation plan?
Okay, here's
Sure,
like a
you can
genuine
leave,
question.
but we're not going to buy you a taxi.
Here's a genuine question. Was there a single American killed by the Taliban over the entire withdrawal?
I think so.
I don't have a source for you on hand.
That's
but
pretty important, right? Like, I feel like
Okay.
if there was, we would have heard about it, right? Isn't this a pretty,
All right.
like, the idea that this was so botched, I just don't think this is true. I think there was a plan. I think we got really graphic footage of people trying to escape.
I
on the
mean,
plane,
13
and it
of them
sucked.
killed at the airport. I mean,
Not by the
there's 13
Taliban.
there. Yeah. Okay, you're right. Not by the Taliban. Here,
Yeah,
But
that's
there's
such
but there's
stupid
probably
distinction.
source.
a reason why. Like the Taliban doesn't want to fuck with Americans in Afghanistan. They want
that's
Americans
so-
to leave more than we do. Like they don't fucking want us there. They're not going to start murdering Americans indiscriminately because that's
Can
the
I-
only way the political pressure comes back in the U.S. to send another 100,000 troops to Afghanistan to start fucking up the Taliban again. I don't think they want that type of long-term conflict with the U.S.
Okay, so
Okay,
we're gonna
let me-
have.
let me
we're-
respond to that.
Give me a second. We're gonna have lecture fan and like this one last interaction. We have to wrap up because we still have one more topic to go. Okay, lecture
Okay,
fan.
Destiny seems obsessed with this talking point that ISIS and the Taliban and Al Qaeda and the Taliban are completely different. They're totally different. You can't complain. That is totally false, and we know that because literally one of the top ISIS leaders is literally one of the main leaders in the Taliban too. They work together. They're not these completely. They're completely separate. That is totally false. And so, and then Biden literally said, "There's never going to be a moment where you see a helicopter taken off from the roof of the embassy." And then guess what we saw? Literally helicopters taking off from the roof of the embassy. But this whole notion that like ISIS and the Taliban are not working together and not in the cahoots, like literally one of the Haqqani network is actually it's the Haqqani network. It's literally one of the Haqqani network leaders is literally one of the most top officials in the Taliban. So this whole talking point that they're totally different is just completely false. That's something that CNN says that's just wrong.
I heard
I
Obama
think-
was the
I think
leader
it-
of both, actually. Sorry.
And Paradigm, you said no better way. I think like a good start to like having that withdrawal be better is like making sure that we have the intelligence.
For the record, chat. The Taliban and ISIS fight each other.
Children. Like I think that's like
Right.
a pretty good place to start because that drone strike that allegedly was going to kill suicide bombers that were planning to go to the airport literally killed 10 civilians, parents, and then 7 children under the age of 10 years old. And they insisted for months that it was just a bunch of terrorists.
Yep, and not a word from these leftists about it.
And the rules were changed.
Everybody was criticizing fucking Biden about that. What are you talking about?
Wait,
You know,
Yeah,
the
I
rules
did see
for
leftists
engagement were
criticizing them,
changed. The
Under
rules
Trump.
for engagement. The rules for engagement were changed under Trump for lower commanders to be able to call those strikes. So it's kind of interesting how that all worked out.
But was it not
Weird.
authorized by General McKenzie? It was authorized by Biden, but I'm pretty sure it was ordered by McKenzie. He literally took full credit for it in the Pentagon press
It was a
brief.
mistake of an attack for sure, but there have been a ton of civilians killed under Trump as well. Not to whataboutism. It was a bad thing. I don't know what this has to do with like the
It
pullout of
has
Afghanistan.
it has to do with Americans were killed during the pullout of Afghanistan and in one of the most horrific attacks on American military members, and you guys are acting like it was a huge success. That's the
Only
issue.
rivaled by the horrendous attack in Benghazi and on Hillary Clinton's email server, I guess.
True.
Okay.
True.
The
So now-
trolling. I guess you troll when
Where-
you got nothing.
Okay, so we're wrapping up. We're gonna have ending statements. Probably keep them under 30 seconds before we go into the last topic, which should be shorter. We're gonna start with Cam.
Yeah, sure. So I think I don't know. I think the first year's been a dumpster fire. I think the Afghan withdrawal was terrible. I don't like the census thing that I mentioned earlier. It's like I said, a 3/5 compromise tactic. I don't like the basically like a border abandoning border states and towns amid the border crisis, and also not going ham on the border crisis, while also like locking. I guess this is also like not just Biden, but other like local leaders, but going ham on the border or not going ham on the border, but then being pissy about Americans and what they're doing in their personal lives during the pandemic. And I also obviously don't like the fact that he literally can barely form a proper English sentence and falls asleep in front of world leaders. And is obviously has some form of mental affliction, whether it's dementia or whatever. I'm not a doctor. There's obviously something going on, and to deny that would be just insane. So yeah, I guess I don't have much else to say.
Okay, next is Destiny.
I just the idea that anybody can criticize Biden for his speech patterns when Trump was literally like trying to fucking direct the country from his insane fucking Twitter account, and when Trump was just like this, like a lot of you guys on here are younger. In my day, we made fun of Bush for Bushisms, and Trump actually put him to shame. I don't know if
What aboutism?
I don't know. No, Bushisms.
Sorry.
I don't know if a single goddamn person in this country anymore remembers how goofy Bush talking was because of how fucking insane Trump was, whether it was on Twitter, whether it was the crazy judo-like handshakes he tried with other world leaders, whether it was the off-the-wall shit that got leaked from his personal recordings or leaked from the White House, the bullshit countries, the grab him by the, like everything. Holy shit. Yeah, I think that Biden is a much better leader. Yeah, he's a little boring, so boring that maybe he puts himself to sleep sometimes, but I will take the dementia-addled Biden, who seems to be a more capable and effective leader than Trump was. I think that says way more about Trump than it does about Biden. I think that what he's done with the coronavirus relief has been great. I think that the way he's handled the coronavirus so far, I think has been pretty great. And the way that we've handled our foreign affairs, I think we've gotten more respect around the world. I think that we can see that in how our NATO allies are being energized on the border of Ukraine, how it seems like Russia's not going to invade, how it seems like we brought people together to sanction and heavily condemn Russia for those actions. And I think that domestically, he's done a good job as well. We've managed to get through another horrible fucking fuck up that a Republican president has granted a Democratic one. We are hitting all-time highs in our economy again. We're bolstering the economy. Unemployment is 3.9%. God bless Joe Biden. I'm excited just talking about him. I'm getting fucking rock hard.
Wonderful. Now I'm gonna throw it over to LCTRfan.
Yeah, you're so excited about Biden that when the first thing you say when you go to defend Biden is, but Trump did this and Trump that and Trump that. It's just the extreme TDS, and it's obviously true. Look, Biden is so unpopular. His poll numbers are so bad. It is such a joke. I mean, he's literally in the 30s now of approval ratings. Look at his poll numbers. They're horrible, and there's a good reason they're horrible. They're so bad that even Democrats are now debating who's going to run in 2024. You guys can troll all you want and say you love Biden and stuff. He's not even going to be the nominee in 2024. You've got all the Democrats. You know, who's going to run? Should we get Kamala? Should we get Buttigieg? Even Biden is now laying the groundwork to not run in 2024. He said he's going to run if he's still healthy. It's obvious he's laying the groundwork. Mark my words, before the 2024 election begins, he's going to say, I've got a health issue, I can't run, and it's going to be fake. You know, he does have health. He's got mental health issues. He's got cognitive difficulties. There's no question about that. Just watch a video of him today and watch a video of him 20 years ago. He's clearly got cognitive issues. You guys need to quit trolling, quit pretend. Just start talking about Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg, which, by the way, I so hope Kamala Harris runs. I so hope Kamala Harris is the nominee in 2024, because that will be one of the worst blowouts and landslide election victories for Republicans ever.
Wait, did he say? Oh,
Okay.
your mic. Did he say 70 Nixon at the end? Did you hear that?
Okay,
Lecture fan?
What?
Oh, your mic cut out. I thought you were referring to the fact that in the past 70 years, only Nixon has polled more unapproval than Trump had. The disapproval voting there, but
Okay. Oh yeah, very clever. Okay. I
I don't get it. I don't get it.
You had him. Look, I think Biden, again, I just want to say, like, he had a steaming pile of dog crap to deal with when he took over this country after 4 years of the Trump administration. Reality TV star didn't do a great job. Who could have thunk that one? 40 judges confirmed to the federal bench. Trump had less than 20. I think that's pretty amazing. I remember the judges being one of the cornerstones of Trump's legacy. I got so many judges. Well, Biden seems to be beating that record. And it's amazing that Biden is accomplishing all this with a 50-50 split Senate, 3-seat lead in the House. Now, I want to remind people the stock market is still booming, setting records. Beautiful. Look at your 401ks, folks. 3.9% unemployment. And to address LectureFan's point, his poll numbers are low. He's taken on some difficult tasks, but the people voted him in to take care of the pandemic. And you know what? Things were actually looking pretty good in the summer before the Delta variant came out of nowhere. And now we've got Omicron, which is just about to give us some herd immunity. And we are going to be heading into this year with inflation coming down, thanks to the Federal Reserve raising the rates 3 times. They're predicting 2.5% inflation by the end of the year, 3.5% unemployment. And boy, when the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade this summer, I don't know if those midterms are going to be looking so good for you anymore, boss.
Okay, now I'm going to throw it over to TJump.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the pro-Biden arguments here is that he's better than Trump. I mean, that's a pretty low bar. I don't know if your comparison to Trump is actually seriously a reason to think he's good here. Like saying he's like slightly better than the shittiest president ever is not really a great strategy for making a compelling case that he was actually good. I don't really think he's good. I don't think any of the current politicians are good because none of them are actually doing anything to make actual real progress, like paradigm shift mentioned. There's actually things politicians could do to actually make progress, and none of them actually do it. They're all kind of garbage. That's my position.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to paradigm shift.
DGG
DGG favorite.
I hate it here. I agree with TJump. I also agree with, even if it's fake, Destiny's enthusiasm over Biden. I believe that progress could be made in a lot more bigger strides, but I'm an idealist and I don't know how these things work in a general framework. But I do see at least people in my communities actually having a little bit more to survive off of. And I'm going to just, like, I know it's something small, but like for a lot of people, food stamps does matter. And like just that alone is like, hey, somebody gave us a nugget. And I know that's not a lot to like write home about, like, yeah, Biden's the greatest president ever. But like, again, guy who delivered on his promises or what he wanted to do, even in a weak way. He did what he said he was going to do. Most politicians I've met in my lifetime do not do anything remotely close to what they say they're going to do. So I'm going to mark Biden's first term as I think Merrick said, give him a thanks.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Merrick.
Yeah, I never wanted Biden. Definitely was not the candidate that I would have chosen, but here we are, better than Trump. Okay. I like that he ended family separation at the border. I actually think he hasn't really gotten anywhere near enough credit for that. I like that he has got us back into the Paris Climate Agreement. I like that they're talking about redoing the infrastructure to do, low and zero carbon emissions. I like that they're talking about environmental justice for historically disenfranchised communities. I like that he really took the pandemic seriously. And I hope that it continues to be a little bit better than I expected. So that's it.
Okay, and we're wrapping it up with Hake.
I thought I heard that Trump, who's the best president of our lifetimes, got us a peace treaty on the Korean Peninsula, but I'm not positive on that. I loved Trump even for not attending that climate hype. I'm not opposed to Biden sleeping at that climate, whatever it was. I loved Trump's Twitter, and Biden's Twitter is boring. Trump told the truth on it, and he got everybody riled. He allegedly said S-hole countries, and that was an accurate statement about the people that we're bringing into this country. He was an independent thinker, not a standard thinker. And that's why these people are loving Biden, because he's a go along to get along with evil type of a guy. And people were pretending that Trump was going to get us into all these wars. That never happened because he's a reserved and temperate person. I don't even think that he was for the Iraq war in 9/11, which I think Biden was more for it than Trump was. Biden is a go along to get along with evil, and he's gotten worse over the last decades because he doesn't have any real beliefs. He pretends to be a Catholic, but then he supports killing the babies in the womb. And he's fighting against real Christians and sensible, honorable people in the Supreme Court over the Roe v. Wade and whatever else is there. He's a nasty person. Biden is malicious toward white Americans and anybody who's opposed to him. He brought in a defense secretary who's not qualified, but got special treatment from the Senate, and they're busy witch hunting whites and imaginary extremists in the military. These people call normal Americans, like Congressman Steve King, so-called white supremacists, which is not even a real thing. There's no such thing. And so they're not a good judge of what's extreme. They push Marxist, communist propaganda and pretend that Trump was horrible. So they're not honest people. Thank God, by the way, for the man who's helping the Mississippi Attorney General for innocent lives while Biden pushes for offing the babies. And he's also opening up the borders. So he's an enemy of America in America.
Okay, now we're going to go on to the last topic of the night. I would also ask chat. Of course, donations, subs, and all of that is greatly appreciated. And again, I would appreciate if you went all and checked out JLP interview. And I will also say, for the record, Trump was in favor of the Iraq War, then later opposed it after it was underway.
He said, "I guess." He was not aggressively for it. He's all, "I guess."
So he was passively, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Right.
Okay, now we're going to go into the last topic, which is, as always, Twitter. Now that Jack Dorsey has left the ship, the bans have still not stopped. They're still coming, and they will keep on coming. And Marjorie Taylor Greene has been banned from Twitter. And so my question to the panel is simple. Should she have been banned from Twitter? And is this a sign of a larger problem of right-wing censorship? We're going to start with Cam.
All right, Dylan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm allowed to use my opener to partially respond to someone's closure, right?
That is true. Okay. You know the metas.
Okay. So I just wanted to say, like, the family separation thing, that literally, like, people are acting like that was just Trump, like, ripping people away from their families. But really what it was is because people were complaining that children were in these detention facilities. So Trump took them, the kids, and he put them in the custody of the Department of Health and Human Services, and they were placed in shelters while their parents were in the detainment facilities. The fact that everybody was like insane over the family separation thing is insane to me, because literally in every other circumstance where you commit a crime, families are separated. If my father goes out and like commits armed robbery, he's going to be taken away from his family and put in prison. Right. In every other circumstance, this is the case. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the bans, I think this could go two ways. Like, does Twitter have the authority to ban her, and should she be banned? I would say she shouldn't be banned, but obviously Twitter has the authority to do whatever it wants because it's a private platform. But I disagree with censorship of political views. And I think actually she got banned literally, like, her final strike. She had a bunch before that, but her final strike was like she actually literally cited something from the CDC and they banned her. So I don't know. I think it's ridiculous. I've struggled a lot with tech censorship myself, like viciously. Vicious bans. I had 1.5 million on my account and they banned me over and over again. It's been 60 times now. And TikTok has emailed me and been like, yeah, you've done nothing wrong. Don't do anything to stop the problem. So yeah, anyway.
Also, I would like to say that Critically Thinking Veteran has subbed for 1 year. Isn't it crazy that we've known the leader of the Wolf Pack for over a year now? Amazing. Now we're going to throw it over to Destiny. Better stop playing piano.
I super don't give a fuck about Twitter bans. I super don't care. If she got banned for bringing the 2S, sucks for her. I ultra do not give a fuck, though. Next.
Got it. Okay. Hake.
Twitter's job is to be evil, especially like the Twitter staff. So since their job is to be evil, they should be doing that. They should ban her. She should have the freedom of speech, and she is a voice of Americans. But Twitter's doing their job. Twitter staff are doing their job.
Got you. IRI?
Well, she got banned after 4 warnings. This was her her 5th instance where she couldn't pull it together. And she was mentioning something from the VAERS database where anybody can write a report about adverse effects due to the vaccine. And she was claiming 20,000 people in America have died due to the vaccine, which is just ridiculous. Anybody can go report on VAERS. I can go report there tomorrow that I got the vaccine yesterday and I got sawed in half in a magic accident and I blame the vaccine. So totally ridiculous. Now, I do believe in a path to redemption for everybody, including Donald Trump. I don't think we should permanently ban people from Twitter or any of these places. We should give people a path to redemption. And so, you know, I don't think anybody's missing her. It's not like she was Donald Trump. I don't even think anybody knew a lot of people don't even know who she is, honestly.
Okay, now I'm going to throw it over to LCTRfan.
Well, I think it's pretty myopic of people like Destiny and IRI to defend censorship, because what they don't understand is that people are being mistreated now, and they're okay with it because it's not them, and it's people that disagree with them politically. So they're fine with mistreatment. They're fine with censorship. But what they don't understand is that they will eventually come for them, and it's not going to be good. Censorship and political discrimination is a civil rights era of our time. These are some of the most important civil rights issues on the planet. I think it's a very, very dangerous situation that we have people that don't care about free speech anymore. Destiny and anybody else that supports this type of censorship has turned their back on America's founding principles and ideals, free and open debate. I think it's absolutely disgusting that you have this kind of censorship going on in digital book burning. That's what it is. I mean, we've got people here defending book burning, essentially. It's a very, very dangerous thing. I think we need to go back to Civics 101, and we need to teach people why free and open debate is a good idea, because what you're going to hear here over the next half hour is out and out arguments against free speech, arguments against free and open discussion of ideas, and we're in a dangerous spot in America. There's never been a worse time for free speech in this country, and it's the civil rights era of our time. We have to end this censorship.
Merrick?
Yeah, so I think it's a pretty good thing, actually. She was saying that, yeah, it's like IRI said, she was saying that like 20,000 people have been killed from vaccines. She was using just like completely raw data from some website that she just didn't even bother to really look into, I don't think. She has a history of spreading COVID misinformation. She has a history of spreading conspiracy theories. The woman is completely unhinged. She violated their terms of service. And I don't really think that it's wise to sit here and argue that companies can't enforce their terms of service, because websites would be absolutely unusable if that was the case. It's not about free speech. She still has her representative account that she's tweeting from. It's not like she's not on Twitter. She's literally tweeting right now. They closed her personal account, and I also think it's really funny to say that leftists don't care, or like liberals don't care or whatever, because there's 2 people on this panel that have been permanently suspended from Twitter that are going to argue that what happened to her was fine. So it's not even a matter of hypocrisy. It's really just like websites have to be able to enforce their terms of service. COVID misinformation is not, you're not entitled to go onto a private business's website and spread COVID misinformation. The government has nothing to do with it. The government doesn't prevent you, or I'm sorry, protect your right to not have consequences in terms of private businesses. So that's just wrong.
Okay, next is going to be Shift.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm gonna do this real quick because I know we got to keep these under a certain amount of time. Facebook was founded in February 2004. Twitter was founded in March 21st, 2006. Twitch was founded in June 6, 2011. Snapchat was founded in September 16, 2011, and Vine was founded in June 2012. All of these things are much, much very younger than everyone here. The idea that they should fall into the mold of what you believe is happening with censorship and not being able to say, no, these things are reactionary platforms. They were built to be reactionary platforms. We all use them. Therefore, if you do something that can have real world effects, these companies can't sit there and say, have their hands tied and say, well, you know, the Constitution says, no, they're babies. And the majority of The world uses these platforms. At this point in time, there are just certain things that you can't talk about in a way that could possibly harm others. Now, I know that that gets into a wide breadth of tweets and this and that, but like Marjorie Taylor Greene was literally nothing but vile her entire time. She wasn't promoting world peace here. She wasn't banned because of something that you don't believe in or like it's lying out of her mouth. Like, goodbye.
Okay.
Disgusting.
And TJump.
I'm with Destiny on this one. Like, I really don't care. I think that she did plausibly violate the TOS, and the fact that she did say like 20,000 people died without providing any like evidence and just using sketchy sites, which could definitely qualify as misinformation that could cost people their lives. So I think for her specifically, it's very justified. I think there are many unjustified bannings, and that there should be some stricter legal requirements on how government should mitigate how terms of service have to be written so it actually makes clear, specific outlines of when you can and can't ban people. Because right now they're just super vague. You could ban people for any reason you wanted to, just because you didn't like them. And I don't think that should be the case. But I don't think Marjorie is an example of that. So I think she's plausibly banned for what she said.
Okay.
I would absolutely.
Okay. Last
I would
topic.
absolutely
It's almost-
love. I would absolutely love to hear one of these people like T or Destiny or Merrick or IRA or Paradigm Shift. I'd love to hear them try to explain the basis and the reasoning why we as a society and a culture have always valued free and open discussion of ideas, because I don't think they can explain it. I don't think they know the reason why we actually value free and open discussion of ideas.
Can I?
He's
Because
so
I've been
excited.
dying.
How can he not go first?
Like,
Yeah.
thank you.
You
All
have
right,
to
just
go
as long
first.
as we're fucking
You
clear
have
on
to
that.
go.
Like, yo, okay, so you said Civics 101. Well, great. Let's talk about it. Societies all across the globe since the beginning of time have not valued free speech. As a matter of fact, free speech is an actual new, like, invention in society. It's very young. The idea that you can criticize open forms of who you give power to without retaliation is a new form of societal's ways of thinking. Every, like, it, you
that's
want
like
me to
230 years old, like
yeah, like
relatively, sure.
So far, you're
But-
getting an F on this.
relatively. Okay, so hold on, no, hold on. Relatively. So
Yeah,
how young
relatively
are these
humans are a new
platforms?
establishment in the
So no, hold
scale
on,
of the
hold on.
world.
So how far, since you want to go there, how far are these platforms in the relative space of our existence as a country?
No,
Answer
I'm
that
not-
question for me.
Okay, so you
making
did
a
not. You
relatively
literally did.
argument.
You literally failed.
Okay, here's the deal. This is your point, LCTRfan, is not true. There are certain things that we don't tolerate, and you're talking about like the exchange of free ideas. It's like, yeah, sure, that's fine, but blatant misinformation is not that, and we have always cracked down on blatant
Okay,
misinformation.
also failed to explain the basis for why we value free and open discussion of ideas. 2 failures. Okay. I guess I'm
that's
right.
that's not what this is, though. We've decided that this is misinformation and that we don't want it circulating in the public. So this is not the free and open discussion of ideas. We've already decided that these ideas are bad.
My point is that you don't even know why, as a society, we value open discussion of ideas. You can't even.
No, I think your question is poorly framed and stupid.
Because I know where he's going. Go ahead, explain to us why we value it.
I think he was asking you to explain.
Yes, yeah. You're admitting that you can't.
Wait,
so
fellow
no,
Lefties,
I'm good.
Can I take a stab at it?
Sure.
So
Just go.
my understanding is that like a central point of freedom of speech, it's not really the concept of freedom of speech. It's more the idea that the government shouldn't be allowed to tell us what we can or cannot say. The ability to criticize the government or to hold the government accountable is like a cornerstone, one of the most important aspects of what the American system is founded on. Like one of our primary central disputes was our inability to have an audience with, I guess, like the crown when it came to matters of taxation, right? And then you had George Washington, who didn't want to, take over the presidency and be a king because he wanted, to have a democratically elected leader. Like freedom of speech is like a cornerstone of our ability to essentially hold the government accountable or to criticize the government without the government cracking down on us or on our ability.
Okay, that's correct as to the First Amendment, but what I was actually talking about is something bigger than that, which is a societal value of valuing open discussion of ideas, which nobody has actually explained it yet.
Well, I mean, that doesn't the idea
if you guys
of
wanna
open
know.
discussion of ideas on all of society doesn't really make sense because you don't really have a global society.
Yeah, it is. Actually, it's the foundation for actually why we as a society actually adopted the First Amendment. The only reason the First Amendment only applies to the government because historically it's the government that censored. The real reason, here's the real reason. The real reason is that we actually value misinformation and disinformation as a society because that's ultimately how you get to the truth. And the reason is because a lot of times when the narrative or the conventional wisdom says one thing, that actually can turn out to be wrong later on. And so what you want is you want everybody to be able to voice their own opinion, even the ones that are false and incorrect, so that we can have as much information as we can, and that actually enables us to get to the truth better. And so that's the underlying reason why you do it. And so when you keep that in mind, then all of a sudden the censorship and the digital book burning and the purging people of society is not a good idea. But I prove my point. You guys don't even know why free and open discussion of ideas is a good thing. You guys can't even explain it. It's amazing.
No,
It's
you
sad.
didn't
That's
ask
just
us why it was a
wait,
good
wait,
thing.
wait.
You asked us why
Wait,
and what
wait,
it was.
Okay, wait.
There goes the eruption.
Sorry. Yep, there it is. But okay. Cam, you wanted to say something earlier, but we stopped.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess okay. So I think that Marjorie Taylor Greene is like a 30 IQ potato. I think she's an idiot. I don't like her. But like, I think that LCTRfan is right, and I think that like everybody needs to be able to voice their opinions. The Supreme Court has acknowledged that the majority of all political discussion that happens in this country happens online and not in the traditional public square. The literal purpose of Section 213 of the Communications Decency Act is to ensure political discourse. It says it in the very first paragraph of the act. Obviously, that's been warped to protect the apps or the websites and give absolutely no protections whatsoever to the actual user. I'm sure this is at some point going to go into like the private businesses can do whatever they want, and that's not true. Obviously, in the current state, Twitter can exercise its authority to like censor people, but it's not true just to say that private businesses can do whatever they want. They can't hire children. They can't dump oil in rivers. Businesses have regulations. It's nothing new. It's nothing crazy. It's not like some obscure thing. But like there are platforms that are currently and Twitter's doing it. I would actually argue that Facebook is like one of the better platforms because instead of censoring you, they'll actually just hit you with a misinformation thing, and that's a hell of a lot better than having your account banned. But so like there are platforms that will literally ban you for not even violating their community guidelines or whatever. And I've been struggling with that. And I have the emails from these platforms telling me I've done nothing wrong. Like it is absolutely insane. And if it doesn't get stopped now, it's going to spiral out of control. And I also think that like censoring people for misinformation is a really slippery slope that can like, because who is the ultimate arbiter of what is true and what is not, right? Like it's for the best way to combat bad speech is with better speech.
Who do you trust to do this regulating?
Can I hold on? I think we should really point out for a second here that there's like varying degrees of misinformation, right? So I think that you can maybe argue that bad information leads people to try and find good information. I don't know that it necessarily works that way, but I think that when we're talking about, there's a big difference between like, I don't know, bad information about, I don't know, how to get somewhere versus bad information that's going to lead to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. So this is on a much more serious scale. So I think that we need to take it much more seriously. And I don't know that having this kind of casual attitude about it is really helpful for anyone or is going to lead to anything good. And there's also this question of like, no one is addressing the fact that we have to allow companies to have a TOS. Because if they don't have a TOS, websites become basically unusable.
Okay, wait,
okay. Multiple people were talking at once, so I'm gonna throw it.
Dylan, can I get on the list then?
Sure. I wanted to throw it over to Hake actually.
The TOS of these people is, I think, purposely vague. I mean, like I said, their purpose is to be evil and subvert the country. And this COVID misinformation thing is like a fake mama spirit idea. The anti-disinfo, anti-misinfo campaign is like the communists accuse others of doing what you're doing. Because so much of this China virus stuff, if I can call it that, is up in the air. We don't know the long-term effects even of the vaccine. And much of the stuff that Marjorie Greene got strikes for proved to be true in the same way that stuff that Biden says. Normal people talk in a way that's not quote unquote accurate, but it's still like the general statement is true. Biden said stuff like that was false too. She said, for example, unless you're 65 or overweight, COVID is not going to hurt you or something like that, which is not technically true, right? But Biden said if you get the vax, you're not going to get COVID, which is also false, but is aimed at helping people towards the truth. Marjorie Greene is one of the people who sought in her own like weak, womanly way to fight for real Americans, and now they're trying to strip her of that voice for the normal American people. There's blatant misinformation on the Twitter. Twitter promoted trending topics, for example, even today with the January 6th thing. Bloomberg tried to claim that Officer Sicknick was slain and beaten by rioters, and that's how he died. Black Lives Matter itself is promoted by Twitter, and that's misinformation. Twitter promoted it. When you clamp down on people's certain types of speech, you only feed speculation. And like the flat earthers end up feeling like they're right because you clamp down on their free speech. So you're only feeding lies rather than truth.
Can I ask you a
But
question?
that's what they want.
Let me ask you a question, quick, Hake. You said that the company is evil. Where does the evil come from?
The culture, the general culture of America has become corrupt. And so the staff, a lot of the staff are evil. And
Duh.
it's kind of like
How do we fix it, Hake? How do we fix it?
we push towards morals in the culture and responsibility and truth and just speak up.
Who defines
what's right.
those morals, though?
Like when Trump spoke the
Trump
truth,
does, obviously.
when Trump spoke the truth, it brought about a change in the culture because it was electrifying for people to hear the truth finally. So, somebody said the emperor has no clothes when everybody could see it, but nobody was allowed to say it, but Trump said it. And it was finally, he talked like a normal American.
Okay,
And-
so sorry.
Yeah.
You go.
Well, for example, Spotify. The people at the top of Spotify don't want to censor
Obviously
Joe
evil.
Rogan, but the workers want to bully them to censor more of Joe Rogan. And you see that over and over and over again. You see students trying to lynch teachers for not being pro-gay enough or something.
So if Marjorie Taylor Greene, I don't know like a lot about the circumstance of her ban. I'll just take your guys' word that she said 20,000 people died from the vaccine. Obviously, that is like ridiculous and stupid. But luckily, largely a lot of people don't take Marjorie Taylor Greene seriously because she's proven herself an absolute moron. And I don't think that her saying that would lead to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people because hundreds of thousands of people don't even see her posts. And likely for the very reason that I just said, because she's an idiot and nobody takes her seriously.
Wait,
But
can I address that when you're done?
Wait, yeah, one second. I just
When
want to
you're
say a
done,
few
thank
more
you.
things. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, like, I mean, if we want to talk about like misinformation like this, we could also like talk about Kamala Harris saying that 250 million Americans died from COVID-19, not once, not twice, but 3 times to the public. Of course, it didn't happen on Twitter, but Twitter does have a history of banning people for things they say off the platform. She literally said this several times. It was obviously thought out. And it was a complete lie. That's what, like 66% of our population. Thanos just snapped everybody away while we were sleeping. No, it's a lie, and that's COVID misinformation. The other thing, like, it's not just people that are getting banned on Twitter specifically, right? Like, they're intentionally like censoring news stories. Like, so the Hunter Biden laptop story, which is true, and Hunter Biden admitted that it's very likely his laptop, that was censored because it was Hunter's personal information. Okay, but then when the Trump tax return story came out from the New York Times, they didn't censor that for personal information, even though it was obviously not legally obtained, right? But the laptop was, because it was left at a repair shop. And Hunter Biden apparently had like millions of laptops and can't keep track of them. But anyway, that's a huge issue that they're literally censoring news stories as well. So yeah, and I mean, I guess there's even the argument to be made that like this is kind of government enforced censorship because really these companies are like government run monopolies. They're fed tons and tons and tons of subsidies year over year, and that's what likely contributes to them staying the top platform.
Okay, so I feel either I misspoke or I just didn't make myself clear enough, but I wasn't saying that her post or you know, her posts, specifically her, are going to cause hundreds of thousands of people to die. When I made that point, I'm talking about there has really been this concerted effort from a lot of people in the GOP who are representatives, who are senators, who hold positions of power, to really push this narrative that either downplays the pandemic or calls into question the vaccines. And I think that a very, very significant amount of people who have, refused to quarantine, who've refused to get vaccinated, who've refused to take this seriously. I mean, we can look at hundreds of thousands of people who have died. And I do think that their leadership really downplaying this situation and really kind of poo-pooing the idea of doing the things to actually take care of yourself and to take this seriously has been a very large contributing factor to that. So when I'm saying like hundreds of thousands of people dying, I'm not talking about just her, but there is a collective narrative that has been formed, and her posts do play into that. And there are a lot of people that do take her seriously, unfortunately, because there are a lot of people that are swept up in this right-wing cult. It's almost a cult mentality at this point. So, I mean, you might be smart enough to realize that she's a 30 IQ potato person, and I think everyone else on this panel is, but you have to understand, like, a lot of our parents aren't, a lot of our grandparents aren't. So I do think that it is valid to say that her misinformation does contribute dangerously to some degree.
Sure. I mean, but I would say the same thing about like Kamala Harris, and I don't really think that members of Congress are pushing a lot of anti-vax stuff. I think that's again mostly like the 30 IQ potatoes, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. There aren't all that many of them, but most of the members of Congress, Republican and Democrat alike, are all vaccinated. What I really hear more is like Rand Paul grilling Fauci about like whether and like the gain of function thing and whether or not the virus came from the Wuhan lab and stuff like that. That's what I hear mostly coming out of Congress. I mean, if you have some kind of citation that says otherwise, like, sure, maybe there was a couple arguments about the vaccine coming from these pinheads like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but yeah, and like Trump has always been like pro-vaccine from the very beginning. Like, so the Republicans largely have been pushing like a pro-vaccine narrative.
My understanding for the laptop thing was that Giuliani said they had the laptop and they turned over like a copy of it to the FBI, but that was never verified that it actually was, and nothing more ever came from that.
No, that I mean, I think you might be thinking of like the other story, because there's been like 4 Hunter Biden laptops found, and he's like confirmed that they're probably his, because I guess he just had like a million laptops.
And anything that were confirmed, they just had like personal pictures of him or whatever. It was no like groundbreaking government secrets or anything. Was my understanding.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that there, if I remember, again, it's been like so long, but there was like conversations between him and like people he was doing business with.
Yeah, there was literally emails.
LCTRfan, you are the last person in the world that I would ever trust for valid information on this. So it's hilarious that you would think I would give a fuck about what you're going to be. And then also the idea that
there are literally emails on there that proved that Hunter Biden was doing international business deals and giving 10%
they were right. They were
Joe
sandwiched in
Biden.
between the 20,000 Hillary emails that
Destiny,
Trump asked Russia to find.
you can attack me personally all you want, but you're just showing yourself to be totally uninformed, dude.
Stop. Okay. So wait, that was a clear attack on LectureFan. So LectureFan does get time to respond.
Because he attacked me. I was defending myself.
Well, Destiny, stop bullying.
I was just saying to Destiny, you can make personal attacks all you want, but you literally just exposed yourself as being totally ignorant and
that was a clear attack on me.
What's actually on the Hunter Biden laptop?
I'm gonna use that attack.
Well, to be clear,
you watch way too much CNN or something. I don't know.
Way too much CNN.
I don't think it matters if the story is legitimate.
The Twitter policy where people are talking about, like, well, the laptop story was censored and the Trump text messages weren't. This isn't true. So the Twitter policy is very specific in that what you're not allowed to like post hacked or leaked documents, but you can report on those documents. Now, I read that full Trump tax story. I don't believe that any Trump tax documents were published as part of that story. It was reporting on the story. And the actual, I think it was the New York Post was the one that broke the laptop story. They actually had hacked or leaked pictures that were posted on the site. Now, other websites, and I believe even the New York Post, that wrote stories about it, but they didn't include the actual leaked material, those weren't removed from Twitter. All of those were allowed to stand. It's only if you, so like, let's say for instance, I get leaked pictures from one of you and I'm like, oh, this guy's dick pictures, like I could make a story about that. But if I include the pictures, even the censored version, Twitter will remove that post, but they'll let stories about it stand. That's my understanding.
But these documents and the pictures and stuff, they weren't like hacked or anything. They weren't obtained illegally. He literally left the laptop at a repair shop that had a policy where if you pick your laptop up,
there's no proof of that.
Well, number one,
no proof he left it at the
laptop.
Hold on,
real quick. Just so you guys all know. Wait, hold on.
Stop. Okay, continue.
Okay, number one, even if that was the case, which I'm not sure if it was confirmed, but even if we do say that's confirmed, that's still illegal. If you leave me a laptop, I can't start publishing that shit on the internet because you leave it. That is absolutely not allowed.
They had a policy, like many laptop repair stores do, that if you leave your laptop here and you do not pick it up, it is our laptop now.
The laptops.
No, hold on. Okay, you especially are a big creator. Okay, so
Okay.
you should know this. Okay, if I own your device, there is a fundamental difference between me owning your device and me owning the copyright to the contents on that device. So, for instance, I might have a contract policy. If you leave your phone in my house, I get that phone, and it's my phone. But that doesn't mean that I own the content on the drive of that phone. So you might leave it. I have access. What? Yeah.
What was copyrighted? What on
It
there
would
was
be
copyrighted?
any
They
of the
own the drive.
any information on that drive. I can't just republish on the internet willy-nilly. Like I wouldn't have the license to do that. Even if I own your device, I don't own the copyright to what's on the device, and I can't make copies of that and publish it digitally. You wouldn't be allowed to do that.
That is correct.
Didn't Facebook even admit they went overboard in shutting this story down anyway?
I'd have to learn.
What you guys are arguing is kind of moot.
Stuff, so I'm not going to push it any further.
Like imagine, for instance, like if you left your credit card at my house, I can't like start spreading pictures of your credit card online.
But there's a difference between me just like forgetting to get like my credit card at your house and you legally owning like the credit card.
Okay, the Apple TOS does not allow you to.
But like credit cards are also like something where you need like, it's like unique to you and it's a contract between you and the provider, right? So it's not like, I think a more like analogous situation would be like if I got a $500 prepaid MasterCard from like Sunoco or something and left it at your house, and you somehow like I said if I leave this somewhere, it's yours now. So like I think that would be more analogous because you obviously can't use somebody's credit card that's in their name with their social security number and their ID linked to it and all that stuff.
Sure.
That is not an analogous argument. That is a really weird way of trying. No, that just doesn't work. What you're trying to say is that the laptop repair place being in legal possession of it would give them the rights to the content of the hard drive. Even Apple's TOS doesn't allow you to do that, which is why when you press that button enough time, when you press your keypad and your ID, whatever you're thinking enough times, it will shut down and it will erase itself because you literally cannot do that.
That's because Apple has that security measure if you enable it. And clearly, if they were able to access the contents of his hard drive, he didn't have those security measures in place. And also, like,
but it's still not legally theirs.
Like, I already conceded to Destiny that I'm not familiar enough with the copyright law, so I'm not going to push the issue even further. So, like, I don't know. You're just doing this whole like.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. No, you're good. I was just furthering up on that point. You're fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question quick. Back to Hake. You said specifically about the Twitter being evil. It was because of the culture. What do you think is the forces behind the culture causing this Twitter to be evil?
Satan.
Gotcha.
I mean, as you've seen how the culture has gotten more and more pro-gay, for example, and pro-believing women when they make accusations and all of that stuff. There's the division and hatred in the country I don't think it's really diminished over the last 20 or 30 years. I think it's increased over the last 30 years. So we all know that people are going to have a whole different set of quote unquote morals that they're going to impose upon based on their TOS and their idea of what's beyond the pale, which is far divorced from much of the country, maybe a third of the country. I don't know.
I'm sorry, silly question. I should have. TJump, is your time?
My time. I think really, I'm totally fine with companies enforcing the TOS, but the TOS has to be like actually defined as to what they're like specifically allowed to ban and not ban. Being so vague that you can ban anything you want, I think is completely ridiculous, and they can take advantage of that to do anything they want. And I think that's really the bigger problem. Taylor Green, I don't care about. Destiny's right. Even if you leave your laptop at somebody's location, they don't own the copyrighted material on the laptop. Like if you made music and you have the copyright on the music or the book, copyright doesn't automatically transfer just because the location it was written transfers. You own the intellectual property. You own anything that's made in private on it. Like you still own all the legal rights to all the stuff on the laptop, even if they own the laptop itself. I think there's actually legal stuff about you're not allowed to take people's personal information on hard drives, even if you acquire their hard drive. That's illegal. So clearly, I don't know why we're talking about Hunter here, but because the thing was Marjorie Taylor Greene. But yeah, I mean, the major issue here is that terms of service need to be made. It needs to be a law that terms of service has to be very specific in what they can and can't ban in order to make it fair.
Can I ask you a question? Because I like what you said. Like, I agree with you. I think that most people, I think I made this joke already, but like we all agree to the terms and conditions of most things that we sign up for without reading them. They're very long, lengthy documents. Nobody's got the time for that. I just want to use the platform. I absolutely agree with that. I wanted to ask, do you think that the terms of service are malleable due to the current like pandemic that's going on? Like, do you think that this supersedes most normal interactions between users to a point where the Twitter like moderation has to step in even harder?
I don't. I mean, I think you could make that argument, but I don't think it does. I think that the amount of stepping in that Twitter is doing is the amount they've always been doing. I don't think they've stepped it up. I think they're just using this as a way to get a political advantage in some sense. I think that they deliberately, like all social media companies, deliberately write their terms of service to be extremely vague so they can get away with doing all this kind of stuff. I don't think it's because of the COVID thing. I think it's just the way the tech companies are because they want to take advantage of as much of the law as possible. They can't be held accountable for anything, and which is what essentially any company would do in that situation. So I don't think it's because of COVID. I think that's just the way the tech companies operate because it makes them lots of money.
Okay. I think we might wrap it up soon unless there's anything else somebody wanted to say.
I wanted to
Here's
jump
a
in.
question. For the Hunter Biden laptop stuff, why was any of the personal pictures or anything of Hunter ever published on the internet? Wait, what was the purpose of that? I'm curious.
People are evil. They'll leak stuff.
Money.
They
was
wanted
the
to be
purpose.
abusive to a guy who had got over his drug addiction. I think
Uh-huh.
it was laudable that he's recovered from that. I think it's kind of sad that people picked on him.
It's also that sex workers are still really scandalous and taboo. So it's just a whirlwind of sex and drugs and sex
It just
workers.
seemed to me that if you had like some killer information about some horrible Russian collusion shit and all the Burisma stuff, like why would you want to bury that behind, videos of Hunter Biden, smoking crack, getting a foot job? It seemed like it made me wonder a little bit about the intentions or the purity of the intentions of the. But yeah, it is
Right. No. Okay. Yeah. No, I would agree with you. But like, I think the main like revelation was supposed to be like all the like Russia stuff or whatever. But now I guess like with the copyright stuff, sure. But I would say like if we're talking about like let's say it happened again and there wasn't like personal information, I would say like the validity, because this happened before we talked about the copyright stuff, like the validity or like even if it doesn't like prove a valid point, the story, like I still think that the story has like the right to be circulated, even if it doesn't actually prove what it's claiming that it does or what it's trying to, right?
Yeah, I think we all agree with that.
Sorry, go. Sorry,
I would look into the laptop guy. It's actually a pretty funny story. This guy's legally blind. That's not funny, but he claims he couldn't see who it was who came in, and the guy said, "I'm Hunter Biden." He's like, "Oh," and then he says the FBI contacted him later to get a cable to access what's on the laptop. I find that kind of weird that like the world's premier investigative agency needed to call this random Delaware laptop repair store guy to get a cable. Like, so I think it's all bullshit, and they probably stole the laptop, and then they claimed they stole the laptop just like they stole his daughter's diary or whatever. And then they dropped it off and they left it at the repair shop and he spilled water on 3 laptops. So it's all bullshit. It's all nonsense.
I agree with you there. Right. I don't know about the diary story. I don't really care about that. But like, you got to like, you're trying to like argue like the validity of like this guy like saying that it's Hunter Biden's laptop when Hunter himself literally went on an interview and said that the story is probably accurate and all of the information on the laptop is accurate.
He said it's possible it's his laptop. He said it's possible.
Which is going to lead me to a question that I had, or a statement, I guess. We're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene and the idea of companies censoring people, but at the same time, like, how would this lead that was a great point. How would this lead to what are these misinformation like fountains leading people towards if they just take it at face value as, oh, the other thing, like the mainstream media is not talking about it. Why aren't we talking about this? Like, it doesn't lead people to the side where you would think would be rational. It leads people to believe the irrational as rational. How long are we going to let that go in a space where a retweet could mean 1,000 people see it every second? How do you rein that in? You can't rein it in by saying this is misinformation. People still, as Hake said, people still are going to get into their little bubbles and get into their little circles and talk about, look, Twitter said it was misinformation, but I found out the real truth. Like, at some point there has to be either one or the other. You either stop talking about it or I'm gonna have to remove you. I don't see a middle ground if you're willing to go that far without giving the proper resources for people to actually, as the famous phrase is, do your research.
Yeah,
True.
I don't know. I think the like biggest issue is like people literally being deplatformed for no reason, like no reason given. No, like literally admitting that, like with me, literally admitting that they've done nothing wrong. But I don't mean to like talk about the Hunter Biden laptop story and like all this other stuff because it was Marjorie Taylor Greene. But I thought like the overarching topic was also like tech censorship and Twitter censorship and stuff like that.
Right.
But
And so
Listen.
like, sorry, I apologize. But that was going to say this at the beginning. More leftists are banned on these platforms. Conservatives rule social media right now.
that's not
Listen,
true at all.
listen,
Is
hold on.
You
not
can
true at
Google
all.
this.
That
You
is
can
not
Google
true.
this.
Okay, no
You, like-
citation needed. No
They have
citation
done-
needed. You
they
can
have
Google
I
done-
it.
mean, do you want me to
studies.
give you the numbers? Because like I could throw the numbers out there, but if I'm even a digit off, like
Sure. I mean, if we want to talk about like
76% of
If you
all
wanna talk about, like,
leftists or
TikTok-
political, like
Shit,
yeah,
because-
TikTok.
because
James
they-
gets political. Like did a whole thing on it. Like
okay, how about the dozens of TikTok leftists that have upwards of 1.5 to 2 million to 3 million followers, and they spew hatred and racism all day. But I was the biggest political creator in general on TikTok for a year, the biggest one overall, not just conservative, the biggest one. And I was banned 60 times, and now conservatives don't have a platform. It's not just me; it's happening to every conservative on that platform. If you think that
are you
leftists
breaking TOS?
victims? No, I literally have emails of TikTok saying that I haven't broken their guidelines.
Did the people who got banned
It's
break
not
TOS?
No,
It's not just conservatives. This
It's-
happens
Wait,
to leftists
wait,
too.
Cam?
I agree
Cam?
with you because platforms like sorry,
You were the biggest one on TikTok,
yeah, for a
and
long
now you're
while,
on my show. The mighty have fallen.
yeah, no, like yeah,
Excuse me, I'm on your show too. This is a major
Exactly.
show.
Yeah.
Dylan.
Exactly.
You little
Yeah.
fucking cuck piece of
Yo-
shit, motherfucker.
Uh-huh,
Take that
yeah,
back.
Yeah, Destiny.
leftists
Gotcha.
are being censored because platforms like this want like a nice, sweet little liberal nice spot, and that's why I'm really surprised that leftists aren't more outraged about tech censorship, because not so much on TikTok but on a lot of other places leftists are being censored because the platforms want a nice little liberal spot. And that's why I'm confused as to why this isn't something that we can all come together on, because it is insane and they don't give reasons. And with me, they're like outwardly admitting that I've done nothing wrong. It's just insane. And I don't know. Yeah. So
I think one of the reasons why I know I personally am not more upset about it because I know that like I was banned from Twitter. Like they permanently suspended my account
Yeah.
because I told Cassandra Fairbanks that I was going to fuck her dad, become her new stepmother, and turn off her internet. That's why I got my account permanently suspended. They said it was
Yeah.
bullying and harassment, which I think is ridiculous. It was just funny.
One
But
second.
there's like
Wait.
What?
Hake, would that be considered evil behavior?
yeah.
For her to say that?
Yes.
I mean, she
Yes.
has the right to she has the right to say it.
Hmm?
I mean, I guess it's kind of evil. It's kind of mean, I guess.
Gotcha.
I
It
mean,
is-
all I was
I mean,
going
it's
to do was
vulgar.
turn
It's a
off
little
her
funny,
internet.
but it's vulgar.
Gotcha.
I was banned
But-
from Twitter for citing a government sort. I don't remember what it was for, but it was like a government report, and they banned me, and now I can't use my name as an @ anymore. And same thing
Sure,
with
but-
TikTok because they
but you
randomly
have-
changed my username.
You have to understand though that like if they didn't have a TOS that they applied, and sometimes it's not fair. Like, should I have been suspended for saying I was going to become someone's stepmom and put her in timeout? No. But if they didn't have a TOS that they didn't enforce, it would be like 4chan and it would be completely unusable. So I mean, we have to put up with a certain amount of them suspending people because I don't want to be on 4chan. Do you?
No.
I don't
There
think
you
that it would
go.
devolve into 4chan. I think that's quite a reach.
Well, but that's what happens when you don't have terms of service on your website.
Sure, there
They
should be-
attract
there
the
should be
worst
some-
people in the world.
Well, we're not dealing with terms of service. Terms of service is more like legal stuff. We're dealing with like community guidelines is really what we're talking about. But like
But that
there
falls
should
under-
be like a backbone, sure. Like I mean, not in Twitter's case, but like you can't post porn and like stuff like that. generally. But like when it comes to political speech, it's a lot different than like when it comes to people making fun of each other, and I'm going to, you know, like making death threats and stuff like that, or telling people to kill themselves. That stuff obviously shouldn't be allowed, because some like death threats are like a crime. Like if you're threatening somebody, it's like a crime. It's not just like the platform's terms of service or community guidelines. It's like actually a crime. So obviously stuff like that should be, but it becomes really shaky ground when we're talking about political speech.
Okay.
And that's the question that I asked.
We
Oh, sorry, we're done. Sorry.
Yeah, we're going to be wrapping up, but I want to make sure he had a question a while ago. I want to make sure he gets time to talk. You were trying to speak up earlier, but Destiny kept talking. Was there something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the idea that we need to censor to prevent harm to the community, because it's not really a good faith argument. Because I mean, I would be fine with censoring pornography and clamping down on cringy people who have no business talking, but the good people need to be censoring. The good people need to be censoring the evil, but right now we have the evil people censoring the good. It's a double standard against whites and Christians and men. If they go up against a black woman, if they go up against a black woman or an LGBT person with a disagreement, for example, I told a black woman on Twitter that there are more than twice as many whites killed by blacks as vice versa, which is a FBI stat, and I was censored for it. My account was suspended until I deleted the tweet.
That's what I was banned for on Twitter. I cited the Bureau of Justice Statistics. I just remembered it. That's what I only had like 300 followers on Twitter at that time, but I lost my @.
Americans are more, what Marjorie Green was pushing for, I think
you're
was
a lot like Hake.
help. I think it was helpful for the community. Americans, you talk about harm to the community. Americans are more out of shape today than maybe ever. And that's more harmful, I would say, than being unvaxxed, is my speculation. I don't know. Marjorie Green was for people protecting themselves by getting in shape, and she was censored for it. One of the times, at least. There are some people who should not get the vax. I think even scientists agree with that, experts who said similar to what Marjorie has said about older people and out-of-shape people. Another example of this harm to the community, the detransitioning people who are ex-transgenders, they talk a lot about how the establishment, social media promotes stuff to kids that they have no business getting into. There's a lot of harm that's accepted and promoted, and we need to turn that around. Nice.
Nobody has anything to say to that?
Amen.
Okay.
Nice.
Amen then. Wonderful.
I just want to know. I'm just curious, like who these evil, like who the good guys are. That's all. I'm trying to figure out like who the good guys are. Hake, like how do I know if Satan's in front of me? You know what I mean?
Jesse Lee Peterson. You just look at the spirit of the people, because people are malicious. You cannot trust.
But how do you see the spirit of the people? You know
Do
what I
I
mean?
have a
Like,
little
do
bit
you
of
see it in their
Satan
eyes?
me?
Like what?
Yeah, how can you tell?
How do
I mean,
you
yeah,
tell?
you're a little nasty.
Hey,
Ooh,
I got
yeah,
a
nasty
really
woman.
important question for you. Hey,
Okay.
is God, do you believe that God is
Amazing.
all-knowing, omniscient, that he knows all things?
No.
Oh God, here it comes.
No.
Yes, I guess so.
You guess so. I need a firm yes or no on this, son. Does God know all things, or are there some things that even God can't know?
I'm not sure.
You don't know? You think there are some things that humans could
Oh,
know or
you
experience
want me to
that
say
God
yes?
wouldn't know about? I'm just curious if you have a firm opinion on it. Do you think that humans can know some things that God can't know?
I don't know.
That's a brave answer, my son. All right, we'll leave it there.
Man, you have been throwing all night, Destiny, huh?
I've never heard of an unknowable God. How can God not be omniscient or omnipresent or jeez?
Throw after throw after throw.
Sounds very
Okay,
mortal
so
to
we're
me.
gonna go into ending statements, and everybody can shout out their channels. We're gonna start in the top left-hand corner with Cam. I want to thank you all for coming to tonight's show. It was a bumpy one, but man, did we have some great moments, some good clippable moments. We're gonna start with Cam in the top left-hand corner. Where can people find you on that godforsaken app?
Yeah, so right now I'm running my backup, so it's just like really Cam Higby, but I'm on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm on Twitch. I'm on everywhere else. Thanks for having me, Dylan. It was a pleasure as always. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, I wouldn't call it a pleasure, but I mean, I appreciate it. Okay.
It's fun.
Next, I'm gonna throw it to Hake.
Thank you guys, all of you, for having me and talking. I enjoyed it. TheHakeReport.com. The Hake Report on pretty much every platform that I'm not banned on, which I'm still a lot of them. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. And you guys need to tune in to Church with Jesse Lee Peterson on Sunday, and make sure you catch The Fallen State with Jesse Lee Peterson interviewing Dylan Burns.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Also, hey, can I ask you a question? Who in here, if you had to guess, would be the most evil person?
I don't know if you can really compare it like that.
You don't know? You don't think you can
Yeah,
figure it out?
Maybe her.
Okay, understandable.
Okay, true.
Thank you. Thank
Gotcha.
you
I
for
would agree with that. I
noticing.
back you up on that one.
Okay.
Shut up, Steven.
Okay, we're gonna throw it over to IRI.
All right. Well, this was a lot of fun. I always love talking about number 46. So thanks for inviting me. I know I filled in at the last moment. I hope you get that big star, whoever it is, next week or whatever, Dylan. I go by I'm Really Important. I talk electoral politics on my channel. We focus on the House, the Senate. We stand C-SPAN. So come hang out with us. I'm Really Important. All one word.
Love IRI. Great guy. Gave me a free beanie. Very nice, man. I'm gonna throw it over to LectureFan. You should check out his merch, by the way. It's great Twitch political merch. The best LectureFan. This is the best point LectureFan's made all night.
You're muted.
Yeah, you're muted, Lecture.
Oh, sorry. Hey, I'm LectureFan on every single platform. Twitch, really active on Twitter. If you're not following me on Twitter, go there. Sub on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, but mainly on Twitch. Live streaming conservative politics every night on twitch.tv/LectureFan. See ya.
Unless you're in the great state of Montana, then you might be able to hear him on the radio.
True. Also on the radio.
Now I'll throw it over to Merrick.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on again. This was fun. I have a very good friend on Twitter who shows me the things that you tweet at her. You can find her at Punished Mother, and then I am on everything else as Merrick Deville.
Wonderful. Now I got to throw it over to Paradigm Shift.
This has been a really cool experience. Thank you for having me. I've already talked about like the fact that just a year ago I started and I used to watch these things all the time and get informed by everyone. So it's nice to be a part of it. That's kind of cool. I'm going to think about that. Everyone had really interesting things to say, and I am very happy that I could participate in the conversation. You can find me on Twitter at Marquise Paradigm, and you can find me on Twitch at _Paradigm_Shift. Please let Twitch know to give me back my name. I hate the underscores.
Wonderful. I will say that that's inspiration. And yes, you at home, if you give me thousands and thousands of dollars, might be able to come onto my stream. It's an
You're not
inspirational
supposed to
story.
tell him, Dylan.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Throwing it over to TJump.
I'm TJump. I run a YouTube channel, youtube.com/TJump. I debate usually professors, philosophers, and theologians on reasons to believe in a God. Sometimes dabble in politics and flat earth. Those are about the same on the intellectual level. Check out my channel and pay me a lot less. I can get you on Dylan's show.
Wow. Gonna have to move and shake to deal with that one. And we're gonna wrap it up with Destiny.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's been a great original panel here. We've had a lot of fun thoughts. I'm going to plug my music YouTube channel. I just released a new single 11 hours ago called Low that has me rapping on it. You can find me at Uncle Adams. That's Uncle spelled with a K. I do rap music on the side. Follow me on my journey to $1 million earned from my rap career. Okay, I'm trying really hard out there. Thank you so much, guys.
Wonderful.
Aced.
Thought it was going to be a Mr. Girl shout out at the end. Okay. Thank you all. You have a blessed one. Thank you so much for coming on. And I'll see you all later. You can all now leave.
Later.
Thank you, guys.